No, new culture. You have a ding there still, it's gonna.
I know, it's something to keep it down.
That's veterans leadership for the young guys that aren't even that young anymore, sons.
Right, yeah. And who knows, we'll come back, you might come back strong too, I mean, never know.
As long as it's not a Derrick Rose kind of situation.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's hard too, because. Competitors, so we're gonna say one way and then.
I'm ready.
Blow out sometimes.
Exactly.
All right, it's 6:02 PM on the 24th of June. We will go ahead and call to order the June meeting of the Hood River Valley Parks and Recreation.
Actually, right now, we're gonna call together the budget hearing.
Okay,
first.
just,
Yep.
okay, I was gonna say that next. Okay, we'll
Yep.
just call to order the budget hearing. And we will start with any public testimony on that topic. Do we have anyone in the room who'd like to do public testimony on the budget?
Or online, and if you are online and you would like to do a public comment or testimony on the proposed budget, please raise your hand virtually, and I will promote you to panelists or allow you to talk. Okay, I don't see anybody online and no one in the audience. So you can close the hearing then.
All right, we'll go ahead and close the hearing for the 2026-27 budget.
Okay, and now we can start the meeting.
All right, so we'll go ahead and now call to order the June meeting of the Hood River Valley Parks and Recreation District at 6:03 PM on the 24th. And with that, we will begin then with regular public comment. For anyone who would like to make a general public comment, just kind of a reminder for everyone that the general policy is 3 minutes per person or up to 3 minutes per person, that we ask the speakers state their name and whether they live in the district. The board appreciates community members sharing information during public comments. While we will not respond to public comment during that time, following the meeting, the board president and executive director will together determine the appropriate level of response. Speakers may offer objective criticism of parks district operations or programs, but the board will not hear complaints concerning specific district personnel. We have 4 people in attendance in person. I'll just kind of go down the list and see if any of you would like to do public comment, starting with Nancy Roach.
I had one comment on the RFP. And that was to add the oversight committee explicitly. It was kind of implicitly there, but it wasn't explicit. That was it.
Okay, great. Jane Nichols?
No,
Okay, Charlie Webster?
Good.
Any public comment?
Nope.
No, okay. And Kate McBride?
no.
Okay, great, thank you. And then the folks online.
If there's anyone online that would like to do public comment, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so.
Okay. We will go ahead and close public comments then. And move on to the minutes.
Minutes look good, I had no corrections, move to pass.
Okay, all
Second.
right, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye. None opposed?
Okay.
Alright.
All right, well, I will just go ahead and move through these resolutions real quick here. We do have 4 resolutions tonight, but they're all kind of standard end of the year cleanup stuff. This is our biggest resolution, which of course is adopting the budget. Monica is here with us as well. And so we just had the budget hearing. And now we have a chance to adopt the budget that was recommended to us by the budget committee at their May meeting. Monica, is there anything you'd like to add here?
No, you summed it up nicely.
So we can entertain a motion to adopt this resolution 2526, number 5.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2526, number 5, adopting the fiscal year 26-27 budget.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed?
All right, the next one is the resolution adopting the fiscal year 26-27 SDC rates. These are the rates that have been approved within our methodology. They do go up by 3% each year. This reflects the 3% for this year, and we have advertised this to the public 30 days in advance of this, which is in line with state law for putting these up. And now we would like to entertain a motion for this one.
I'll make a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2026-27 SDC rates, resolution 2526, number 6.
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. The next one is a resolution imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes for fiscal year 26-27. This one's a little bit different. We have not done this in the past, but this is another one of these ones that's by state law that we're kind of beefing it up a little bit on what we are going to do each year for the budget, and this is just basically our granting us the authority to collect the taxes. I don't know, Monica, if there's anything else we'd like to add on this one.
Well, I would just say we have done this every year. We've just combined it with our resolution adopting the budget because we just had the one tax rate. Now that we have two tax rates, we have our permanent and then the 5-year local option levy tax rate. We have this in a separate resolution recognizing both of them.
I make a motion to pass resolution 2526, number 7, imposing and categorizing ad valorem property taxes for fiscal year 2026-2027.
I'll
Thank you.
second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. And last resolution here. This is resolution 2526, number 8. And this is a resolution to determine the 2026 election results. We have gotten a copy of the official abstract from the county, and it all looks to be in order. And so our bond attorney recommended that we do this just to kind of, since we're not collecting the taxes this year on the bond, so that it's kind of plants a flag and says that yes, we had this election and we have seen the results and approved of it, and next year when we sell the bonds, we'll be able to move forward with this.
So in a sense, that categorizing ad valorem was the acknowledgement of the levy, and then this is the acknowledgement of the bond.
Yeah, the levy and also the ad valorem also had a regular general fund tax rate in it as well. Yep.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2526, number 8, to determine the 2026 election results.
A second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed?
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Great. And now we have 2 guests to provide some insights and feedback. Nancy,
Fuller chairs.
yes,
Yeah.
please, yes. So Nancy Roach and Kate McBride from HRV Residents for Parks and Rec.
You're good.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna start and Nancy's gonna chime in, and then Nancy's gonna go, and then I'm gonna chime in. So lessons learned. So the lessons learned are, I'm gonna go through these very quickly because I think that the getting ready for 2031 is the more critical, but we need to know what lessons learned in order to prepare for 2031. And if you guys would like a copy of this, we'll go ahead and send it out. And then, we'll just email it to you guys, and then you can get a copy of it.
Thank you.
And there was one other document that Nancy had prepared that was a
actually, it was an AI document from Claude, right?
Oh, it was actually, yeah.
Pretty good.
Well, once I informed Claude, Mark caught an error. It was like the one time I didn't double check AI and made a mistake. And once Mark caught the error, it was really interesting comparing the two election results and seeing where we gained the most support, and interesting where the levy lost support, relatively speaking, in 3 precincts. So it's a good message about diversity.
Yeah, so we'll get that to you too afterwards. So I'm just gonna go through this quickly. Behind the scenes, so this is kind of what we did as a group. We developed a message which was save our pool, protect Parks and Rec. The pool will fail, community ed will end. So we were just basically short, sweet, and urgent is what we did. We developed a story, we got the facts and figures of what had been going on for quite some time. Then we built the machine, which was a website, signs, banners, flyers, posters, mailers, social media. And if you don't want to take notes, I'll send all this to you. I can see you writing away. So those were all the outreach materials that we used. And then we created an outreach strategy by working to identify influencers, people that talk to other people that know a lot of other people. We trained our group on talking points, developed a multi-pronged voter outreach strategy. We had tabling, we got out our signs, we got out our banners, we had an email support list. We had a machine, which was right here, that made sure we had a lot of letters to the editor from different support groups. And also we had paid social media that was targeting to our community specifically, which actually became organic as time went on. And it wasn't as, there were more hits on social media because of the paid social media. And then it became organic for the positive. Not that there weren't negative comments, but the way it worked was we overwhelmed the negative comments in general. The execution was basically, we started with our campaign launch, which was the Splash Bash, which Mike helped immensely with that. We had lots of meetings, emails, phone calls with influencers, sent information out to other elected bodies, other groups, Rotary Lions, to let them know what was going on. Flyers in stores. We had mailings, as did the district, but we also had postcard mailing and a flyer mailing. We had two mailings. We created videos. So we had people that volunteered to actually create videos, interview people, and canvassing, get out the vote. Another key element was the flamingos. You guys all saw the flamingos. And that was quite the talk of the town, I think. People, what the heck are those flamingos? What is that about? So it was catchy, but it worked. It was playful and it generated a lot of discussion. So we thought it was a great idea. The canvassing, well, one of the people that suggested canvassing is sitting right here. We need to be canvassing. And we did. And we thought that was actually the best way to actually get people to vote, because the voter turnout is so low in primaries on a non-presidential year. And so we felt like we needed to knock on doors. It was somewhat intimidating to some volunteers, but we got enough people out there that we felt like it really made a huge difference in the end, because you could explain what it was face to face. And which a lot of people, surprisingly, lessons learned, didn't understand what the whole deal was about. Did not understand community ed / recreation was gonna go away, did not understand the condition of the pool, oh, just fix it. And when you get face to face and did explanation, it really made a difference, I think. That took up quite a bit of upfront work to identify, you know, where we should be knocking, training volunteers, following up. But we were able to piggyback on what the Democrat effort was, because they do a get out the vote, knock on doors thing. We would have worked with any political party. We didn't, for sure, with anyone that would have worked with us, we would have worked with them. They were the only ones that showed up and said, yes, we'll work with you. So we attempted to work with other political parties, but we didn't have any success with that. The level of effort was, we estimated 3,000 to 4,000 hours is about how much time, time was put in there. And that included 2 almost full-time volunteers that started in January and went through May 19th.
More than full-time.
More than
More than
full-time. Yeah, there was no Saturday and Sunday, didn't make any difference. No. If it had to be done, we just did it. We had volunteers that donated professional skills, website, video, communications, public relations, graphics, social media expertise. And we had donations of $22,000, 74 donors, but almost half of the money came from 3 donors. So we had 3 large donations that, you know, were instrumental on that. So that's pretty much it for, you know, what we did and kind of the lessons we had, what we felt worked through the process. We were trying to listen to what people were saying as the thing evolved, to shift to letting people know different messages, that if they would get off track and we're like, no, that's not what's happening, then we would kind of shift our message if we needed to, so that, you know, we could get the myths and falsehoods squashed, basically. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, well, so basically, what we learned is that there's two big places where we needed to get out better information. There was a lack of understanding. The pool could be fixed. The people did not understand the role of the district in parks and trails and recreation plan programming and the finances of the district. I think there are people who assume you have a lot more money than you have. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing, the theme that came up over and over again, and this isn't going to surprise anybody, is mistrust of the district due to past decisions. And there's 3 specific ones. Barrett Park, taking on community ed without a funding plan. And that could have been messaged differently looking back. And then also proposing what a lot of people characterized as Taj Mahal. That the 2024 proposal lost a lot of credibility for the board and the district in people's eyes, because people felt like it was so out of touch. And those are, you can't do anything about the past, but you can learn and do things different. So the whole thing, when Kate and I talked about this, our focus was really, how do we make sure that in 5 years, it's easier? You know, and it wasn't the mad scramble. I mean, this really was an insane timeline. And we were very lucky in a lot of key places. So right now, we have a good relationship with the voters, not with the taxpayers, but with the voters, right? It's a good relationship. What we need to do in the next 5 years is maintain that and build on it, and not mess around with it. And I think everybody agrees with that. Because the hardest is that parks are nice to have. They're not critical. It's not like police and fire. So you have to keep explaining to people why it matters, why union taxes matter and all of that. And ultimate goal is that in 5 years, when the levy comes up, people go, well, what the heck are they talking about? And other people will stand up for you. You know, this time we built that machine, but next time we want it to already be there. So the current communications focus that I looked at, because I looked at the website and I looked at the social media. And one thing I forgot is when Kate and I are saying this is our opinion, but our opinion is based on decades of expertise and experience. And so you guys don't know me from a hole in the ground, but I have been on multiple land use growth and health advocacy commissions. I've been on multiple boards of multiple oversight advisory, you know, all those things. But the thing that launched a lot of it is I founded a nonprofit based on an idea. I never drew a salary. And as a volunteer, I built a $2 million organization that's still in existence that changed public policy at a state and national level. And I had a lot of learning from very, very, very smart people to where I was able to learn from people who knew how to do that stuff. And it was fascinating. I mean, I have been incredibly lucky with what I've been able to accomplish and the people who taught. So when you get a comment from me, that's the background that you're getting from me.
And for me, you know, I've been in public office here in Hood River. I've lived here all my life. I know a lot of people. You know, being on planning commission, which was the first, you know, being a land trust manager, first of all, working with people in the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area, some agreed with it, some didn't agree with it. And you were still working with those people regardless on both sides. And you had to be able to bridge that gap, however that you had to do that. And so, you know, I learned how to do that. Then I was on, you know, planning commission. That is not, that in some ways, planning commission's harder than city council. Because you are making land use decisions and people sometimes do not agree with those things. But you have to follow the rules and you have to interpret the rules. And then getting on the city council, learning how to communicate with others, how to get your point across. And the reason you have the point, 100% of people are not going to agree with you. You have to go on if you get someone that doesn't. But I felt like we could get a large majority of people that got on board with the proposal that you guys proposed this time.
Yeah.
So that's my background with, you know, what I've done.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's not just my opinion. I do have some background
Yeah.
in some of this stuff.
yeah, because I know, I mean, so the thing, okay. The current focus is user oriented, right? You want to tell users what to do. What we think would be helpful is developing a communication plan for non-users. Just like the owner's rep is developing the construction plan. And you're developing the work plan for the new levy money, develop a communication plan for non-users that hits the same messages that are going out, because there's gonna be a lot of disruption in this little neck of the woods with traffic and parking. I can't even imagine what the city's gonna say when they review the parking stuff. And the communication, the frequent, transparent, plain language, easily accessible communication that goes out in a variety of ways. So you're not putting it on one post on social media. You do multiple posts. You put thank you, watch us for what comes next on the kids' t-shirts that go out. Let's see, there was some other ideas. Oh, a sign at the pool that for people, because everybody who comes to the pool is wondering what's going to happen next. And you're starting to do some of that. The more you can do, I think the better. You want to be ahead. You don't want to be arguing in the comments. You want to be in front of the comments. So that's important. And just for figuring out what the paid part of social media did. We spent $2,800 for 135 views across 38,000 accounts. And there are three people saw each ad of average of 3 times. So that means we spent less than $5 for every 1,000 impressions. And people were looking at our stuff. And I think there are ways to make people look at things. I mean, we very consciously made decisions about how to headline things. And it wasn't government speak, which I know can be a real stretch. I've worked with government. I know that they don't tend to be, there's a fallback towards conservatism, and I understand that, but I think that there are ways that you can do things like that. And also more people, I think, are gonna start watching and paying attention as this happens. And there have been a couple times where there have been comments about that imply a level of frivolity about taxpayer funding that, I'd just be really aware of that, really acutely aware of that, because you all have good intent and you have good heart, and it's not that your intent is bad, but sometimes things come out and you don't realize how it might hit in Farm Hood River. And yeah. Then the next part, outside of direct communication, build community engagement by going out in the community. And so what does that look like? It could be having board meetings in Odell and Parkdale once in a while and explicitly inviting people and make it a listening session. Figuring out ways to engage them, the people who are there more and what's happening, I think would be a huge win. In my dreams, I'm gonna win the lottery and buy a bus that can bus kids down to the pool, right? Board members could go to local leadership groups on an annual basis and talk about the state of Parks and Rec. So once a year, you go to the chamber and say, this is what's going on, right? And notice I'm saying board members, and not staff, and members, and not just the chair. I think it's best, these things work best if it's a group effort. And again, because in 5 years, when the new levy comes around, or the levy comes around again, you want those people to know the story and see what you guys have accomplished with that money. And also outreach, regular outreach to the elected groups, the port, the county, the city. Going there, they all have that 3 minute at the beginning of the meeting. Just go and say, hey, you know, we're gonna start demolition next week. Just want you to know. And little quick updates so that they know that you're there, and they're the people ask, right? People go up to Paul Blackburn all the time. And I know when Kate was there, you know, well, what the heck is going on with so and such? And if they don't know, it's better if they know and they can say, oh, it's being handled really well, right? And then we come to so that's the community engagement part, you know, actually going out and building those relationships. Then it's dealing with past decisions. And the problem with hunting and saying it wasn't on our shift is that they keep festering, you know, and if they have to be addressed over and over and over again, and you need the same message for everybody every single time. But I don't know what the message is on Barrett Park. It might be, we're not going to talk about that till 2023 or 2032, or it might be, we're going to make a decision on whether we want to sell it in 2032. But an answer, you know, what are you going to do about Barrett Park? Just saying, well, it's just sitting there trying to figure out what the heck we can do with it. It doesn't hit the right way. You know, it doesn't hit with certainty, and then you guys see the path forward. And things like, well, they bought West Side and they didn't have the money to do it, or they took on community ed and they didn't have the money. I wish, in hindsight, what I wish could have happened with community ed is when you took it on, I wish we could have had a campaign that said, we are saving this. If you want to keep it, you have to vote yes on the levy, because we can't continue it without that. And look, take it as a victory, because you guys really did do a wonderful thing. And a lot of people have given you flack about it, and very few people have said, well, thank God they were there to take it on, and that's how I feel about it. You know, thinking of things like that in dealing with the past, to put them to bed.
But you have to be proactive.
You have to be proactive.
Proactive, you know, get out in front and say, okay, how are we gonna, if there's a possibility that this could go negative, that this could go, because it was, you saved it, it was. But because there was no campaign to say that, rumors start, people make things up. Oh, you know, you shouldn't have done it, you didn't have the money, you know, instead of taking a proactive approach of, no, we saved it.
We say,
And you are gonna have to vote on this because we are gonna put a levy in front of you.
you know,
And it might not be for a year or two, or we are gonna put a levy in front of you in 2 years. But you need to get that up front because we're saving it for you, so you get to make the decision of whether you want to keep it in 2 years. Otherwise, it goes away today.
yeah.
So, but just more of a proactive approach, I guess, so people will understand the good
Good thing.
things.
Like
Yeah,
when the
yeah.
inevitable. There's gonna be at least one huge problem with the pool, you know, based on the history of remodeling. And when it happens, it's like, thank God we had a great owner's rep because we figured it out early. And if we hadn't done that, it would have been bad. But you have to think about, you have to have the time and the bandwidth to think about that stuff and think about how you're gonna deal with it. And because Mark, a lot of what you do in your updates and the budget messages, actually, I've gone through all the old budget messages and you have some great messaging in there. And I bet that I am probably the only person in Hood River who's ever looked at the 2019 budget message, which and
A
so.
little like greatest hits.
But I think you say a lot of this stuff in meetings and it's. The effort needs to be to get it out, you know, so that when you say, we're gonna hire these 2 people, the first thing we're gonna do with the levy, and that's a great post. You know, things like that. And the problem is, I know that, Christy and Kate have talked to Marcy about this. I know I've talked with Marcy about this. Marcy is one person. Marcy is now trying to be 2.5 people, I think. There's a 1.5 persons.
Depends on the day.
The bandwidth,
At least 2.
yeah. And so the bandwidth, what we're talking about is on top of what you guys are doing currently. And I know the bandwidth doesn't exist. I know that you don't have the money right now to hire it out. So until you have the money to hire it out, Kate and I are willing to help. I mean, you use volunteers for the sports fields, you use volunteers for trail maintenance. If I volunteered to wash the windows here, I would probably be taken up on it. So we're offering our knowledge and expertise to help with that kind of messaging, the develop of, you know, not the stuff that you're doing now, which you do, which is fine. It's the outside stuff that you're not doing. So that's our offer for 2031. We're not gonna do the campaign again, but we will help.
We'd like to make it so that a year before the vote is that really the whole community is already there.
Right.
And if you can do the things now, in 4 years when that campaign starts, it won't be such a monumental campaign and you will have the majority of the people there already in their heads. That this is the greatest thing since sliced bread and we have a brand new pool and it is amazing. Our parks are being taken care of, you know, and they're gonna go, yeah, we see
love it.
what our money
We want
went
this to
to.
continue.
We love it,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's, you know, that's why we're doing this, lessons learned. This is why we're coming to you now, just we have it all fresh in our heads.
So does anybody have questions? Or
Thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. You've been amazing.
you did, that video you did was great.
I was just did what I was told.
It was great. It was great.
You know.
Oh, everybody.
Requested,
There was help.
yeah.
Everyone helped. Everybody had a lot of help.
Once we got you and Jaime involved, we could finally get out some Spanish messaging,
You know.
couldn't get before that.
Whatever I can do to help and
Yeah.
that part of the the arena, I'm more than happy.
No, thank
I'm
you.
busy, but I'll make time and space for that.
Yeah. So no questions? No, I don't think I've ever had no questions.
Well, I don't have questions because I've
Yeah.
had conversations with both of you about this, so otherwise I would probably.
Okay.
Yeah, but you talked about the three areas of distrust and then talking about hitting those kind of going backward and, talking about those. It sounds like it really just boils down to Bear Park at this point, because we kind of dealt with the other two, which was taking on community ed and proposing Taj Mahal, which we obviously went for a lesser ask, and then obviously got the levy to work towards community ed. But the Bear Park one was initially one to see if we could somehow figure out at least whether we don't, but some kind of plan in the next 3-4 years that we can then tout as we're going along with the pool or something, to not have to punt it. Probably be a good thing. We can at least figure out what we want to do with it.
Yeah, no matter what, I mean, there are people, if we sell it, you'll get criticized, if you keep it, you'll
Yeah.
get criticized, it doesn't matter.
Probably not a good
Yeah,
idea to
you'll get-
leave that in the gray area for the next 4 years,
Mhm.
to quarterly this. I mean, according to like kind of getting on top of things and just showing that the efficiency and what we're accomplishing.
Yeah,
People are still talking about it after all this time,
Right.
you know.
and you won't make everybody happy. I mean, you will not make everybody happy. It's land use. You will
Yeah.
not make everybody happy. That's just how it be.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I thank you both so much for it. So many good points. I mean, it really just stimulates a lot of other thoughts in my mind, but I mean, one of the biggest pieces is just being ready in advance. As you talked
Yes.
about, the short, sweet, and urgent that it took to get what we're doing now. I mean, the difficult part is, elected positions and that turnover and how far out you can prognosticate what we're doing. But even then, we take the assumption now that 5 years, we're going for another levy. But redistricting had been talked about with boards previous to us and the potential of doing it once and then setting it off. And so I think maybe the board needs to talk strategy a little bit sooner to think what options are there. And maybe even, 3 years from now, 4 years, you talk about redistricting and then dropping the last year of the levy, if that's feasible. But using that strategy to kind of like get ready. So then if that doesn't work, year 4, we're now ready to go for 1 year out to get another levy.
But I think that if you do that, there's a whole bunch of psychological stuff
Mhm.
that you need to really think through if you're gonna try something in 2 years or 3 years, and then you're gonna switch to something else in another 2 years. It gets,
Yeah.
then you're gonna start that cycle again.
And
Completely.
then,
Potentially people going, what the heck are they doing? Why did they do that? Why isn't it?
Yeah.
So I mean,
and not
there's,
till the pool is done.
Of course
Yeah,
not, but I
oh,
think
yeah,
you
yeah,
brought up
that's
these
what the
great
rules are,
points, like
completely
thinking
that,
about that now before we get down to less options later. We don't
Right.
have the option for that now because we didn't think about it and we kicked the can.
Yeah.
So, and 5 years from now, you're ready to help in your own way. But 5 years after that, or 5 years after that,
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the game that would be continued if
Yeah.
we didn't take another course of action.
it's, do you talk about redistricting in 3 years? You put something out to try and do that, it doesn't work, then you go for the levy again. It's like, well, that didn't work, it's kind of, the Taj Mahal didn't work, now we're
Yeah.
gonna go for this.
Yeah.
Or should you just wait till the end of the 5 years and go for the redistricting?
Exactly. But
You know,
we gotta
but-
be talking about that now.
Yeah. But those are very complicated questions
And
and
they require-
psychological questions for the voters.
And then
That's gonna be difficult.
they require a ton of work with other local agencies. You can't, that's like a 2-year process to get everybody on board.
Well, to your point now, I mean, keeping that relationship with the voters
Right.
and all this work in advance, whichever direction it goes, that is a must. That
Yeah,
proactivity matters.
Right,
But if the redistricting has to do with the county,
right.
and then that is, there's a whole nother layer of relationship
Right.
building and discussions and, that we haven't even touched on, that is a whole nother layer that would have to start happening.
But it's that kind of moving forward thinking of how do we fireproof the building, how do we make it so that it's not a mad scramble every 5 years? Or how do we make it so that it's an automatic, like the school bombs and
schools
stuff,
just-
it's
Yeah.
automatic. So, and I just want to say one other thing, the relationship between the foundation and the campaign. The foundation did a lot of work. And specifically, I want to call out Marcy and Christy and Charlie for the stuff they did as part of the foundation. I know it was a pain in the neck. And that I think was Marcy trying to be 5 people at one time, but there were a lot of complimentary places where Charlie was talking to people theoretically about being a major donor, but it actually got them to vote for the pool, you know, and these are people who influence other people, so you want those people in your pocket. So I know it's a resource strain to continue that constant interaction, but I think it pays off. Okay.
Thank you both
Thank
so
you so
much.
So seriously consider our offer though, right?
Yeah, that was a serious offer.
Talk about it, it's strategic plan.
Morning.
Roger that, yeah.
Okay, so next up, they essentially introduced the next person here is Charlie Webster from the foundation.
Hi, everybody. Okay, I'll be relatively quick. We just have a handful of slides here, and I think what we wanted to do was continue a dialogue with you. You know, to advance donor recognition, which is a very helpful dynamic as we raise funds. As everybody knows, we set out to raise $2 million. It is my pleasure to share with you our progress so far, which includes just over 165,000 of pledges. You may be aware of that, which we're now seeking to convert into donations and maybe nudge up a little bit more, but we might have a little fallout too, so we'll see. But I think that's a pretty good number. Could go a little higher. We also have received, at this time it's going to remain confidential, but a $250,000 verbal commitment to the pool, which puts us then at about 400 plus toward our $2 million goal after 1 month. So that is pretty incredible, very incredible. I'd like to tell you that it was all because we're good looking, but that's clearly not. You got very, very lucky, and I think we all are in the presence of something that's clearly very, very significant to people in this community. The donors of this 250K have a lifelong connection with pools. One of the donors' mothers did something similar in her childhood community. So there's some strands and there's some resonance at play here. It's very exciting. Anyway, so part of what we discussed with those donors was this topic. So if we click forward, I want to share a couple of things. Thank you, Mark. So this is what you guys, I think previously kind of approved, which were naming rights and some named items. So if we just keep going. It was a little dense, but basically what we're starting to cultivate here is more structure and clarity around the donor levels and beginning to help donors visualize the recognition that they would secure through donations at those levels. If you have seen these slides, you'll see that the bubbles is kind of the most popular concept at the moment.
Pretty awesome.
It's pretty cool. There are actually a lot of groups that design and build these things and make them look really cool. So we have that design part still ahead of us, but we're centering around the notion that there are these levels. So, you know, 5,000 to 20,000, 20 and above, 50 and above, and 100 and above would be different size bubbles on this donor wall. Of course, we would also recognize taxpayers, mindful of the fact that $40 million is coming from the taxpayers and only, you know, approximately 2 is coming from the donors. We want to be very sensitive and delicate around that. And then we want to leave open the door for donors to personalize it as is maybe requested. So for example, the donors we just spoke of would love their little sign to read in honor of their mother, which sounds fine to us. But There may be requests that are not as fine, and we'll come back and align those with you. I think we have to run a thoughtful, equitable process as well, you know. So I think that the takeaway from that, let me keep going and then we'll close off. So we have also been considering having permanent fixtures, which include recognition. So groups like the water polo team, or the aerobics group, or the kayakers could all team up, for example, and individually give a couple, 2, 3, 5,000, but in aggregate give 50 or more. In which case we propose to recognize the name of that group in a 50K tier bubble, as well as identify them by name in the other structures that we're laying out here. And then finally, we do think that it may be helpful to raise money if we allow people to potentially put their names on specific meaningful things like bleachers and community rooms, changing spaces, patios, etc. I think we also want to be a little careful not to have names all over the place. I think we want to run a very, careful process that way, but we're open to that discussion and wanted to socialize that with you guys. What else? And then there's the lower tier. So the thought there is, while people at the 5K and above would have bubbles, people below to 1K would have their names. And again, this is a proposal seeking your reactions. I will share that we've been back and forth on this a little bit. So I don't think there's a right answer here. Is it too little for a $40 million facility? Is it just right? What is the equitable thing to do as well? Because for some people, $1,000 is a lot of money. To other people, it's not. And I think that issue of equity is important to the whole sort of concept of the community and the pool. So
I do like having a range that's, to get the same, say whether it's a brick or whatever. So yeah, for some 5,000 would be unheard of, but 1,000 maybe could be done, but that they're in the same zone seems reasonable to me, just at least close. Even if it was more, maybe 500 to something just for a little, but at the same time, my favorite thing you said was not having too many names, and B, make sure we recognize that 40 million of it is outside of this.
yeah,
And so I really think if we are focused, I mean, even with the bubble wall, if there's a big messaging up there saying, hey, the vast majority of this pool is filled up by the taxpayers, it's say it in a proper way, but then here's the bubbles that help, give us these add-ons.
To the finish line.
Right. But so I think that's a really big key, I think, is making sure we're acknowledging that.
and so there's a couple ideas. This one on the left is actually created by AI after I went back and forth about 10 times. It's not perfect by any stretch, but it gives you some ideas. And yeah, so we would evolve the design, probably with one of many firms that build these things, and then come back to you and get your concurrence and input. But I think at this juncture, we would like to make sure you're comfortable still with this idea, and that we would all reserve together a wall space, ideally facing the pool, ideally on the order of sort of 8 to 10 feet wide by 6, 7 feet tall. That's the kind of typical range of these types of walls. You don't want to be too teeny off to the side. You also don't want it to completely dominate the space. So that's the proposal at the moment.
Hey, Mark, can you show the next slide as well? And we have Brian joining.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Hey, Brian.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I didn't see a last name on your thing, and I thought you were different. I mistook you for a different Brian.
Oh, sorry.
So,
just a quick comment on some of the things Charlie was saying. And again, this is kind of technical part of it, but having a map to the names so folks can find themselves. Especially if you do we just had things like that go on with the library, and just we had to end up going back through the bricks and the different options that folks had for naming, and just to do that ahead of time because it's a lot easier. Ask me how I know.
I'm not thought of that.
And then the other one would be, and again, I'm not sure how you would approach this, but the expiration of names. Again, it would just be something to consider and think about. This isn't intended to be forever. And maybe it is. I'm just, we just had folks who misconstrued, again, in a different context, bench had rotted to, needed to be replaced and, is that the opportunity to rename it or is it every 5 years? Just to think about
Good input. So again, the concept is, or what we wrestled with was, what is the appropriate contribution to recognize the donor for a facility of this size with the context that 40 million comes from taxpayers? We came up with this range, of 5,000 at the lower level bubbles going to 20, 50 and 100. And again, 1,000 and above would be names of individuals, in the spirit of an equitable recognition. I think in the abstract, it's a fairly small number against a $40 million facility, but with the spirit of equity, it feels good. But again, welcome your views.
I'm definitely open to all of it. I think it's a good idea. The logistics can be kind of dialed in as we go. My only thing is what's already been said, which is I don't know what 250,000 buys you, but even that is smaller in the grand scheme of taxpayers than 40 million. So I don't know about slapping names on big ticket items and then how that will feel. The wall makes a lot of sense. That's cool, but there's a range there that still has to be dialed. But I just don't know what that is exactly.
The range on the special items or on the wall also?
Well, the add-on concepts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the wall in essence too. Like these people paid to have things added on, but the public paid for the facility.
No, we're not, the foundation's not proposing adding on features.
Well,
Talking about features that would be designed in to the facility, like the community room that's already going to be, this space. And the family changing space and the patio. There's things like the splash pad that won't happen if we don't have the funds. But it's not being proposed that like an extra feature is added, at least at this
Well,
time.
I thought that was the understanding early on was that we did have at least a plan of what we're going on, but if we're gonna try to raise funds to put bigger windows in or something like that, that was where the fundraising was gonna have a pound chip in.
we
So I
get a
think-
facility
there's
regardless
a little
of the
gray area.
foundation.
I think it just sounds like, sounds like you guys are on the same page, it's just a little wording, I think. Maybe, I mean, bleachers, obviously, things like that, that feels like that could be easily named, but someone could take that, but yeah, putting someone's name on a $40 million building seems not fair. But something that was maybe, we wouldn't have had bleachers unless someone donated that extra $25,000. We wouldn't have had nice bleachers, or we might have had just benches. But maybe if the bleachers that the water polo team raised the funds for, I think you could say that's courtesy of Hood River, water polo team. That those kind of things are reasonable. Isn't that what we're talking about for those kind of like mini upgrades or?
I think it is recognizing, people
Yeah.
gave this item.
Right, which is in essence an add-on.
I think it's
that we are
definitely,
naming.
there's room to talk about it.
So the fundraising increases with the budget that the district has to make the design. Versus the fundraising providing money for special items that are special requests from people, like that is not at all what's being.
Yeah, I
proposed.
just.
You're worried about people basically saying, hey, I want a hot tub, so I'm putting $50,000, I want a hot tub.
Yeah, I wanna be really explicit, that's not what we're
Yes.
talking about,
Yes.
or like, oh, I will give
Right.
extra money to make sure it's a 2-story door, like
Right.
the district board in collaboration with district staff and the architects determine. We'll work on the design, not the foundation donor saying, I wanna pay for a 2-story door. So
But-
please put it in.
And this is the opportunity to provide the foundation with a fundraising vehicle.
That's
I
exactly
mean,
right.
and so that's what I took it to be, and I think
Don't
that
abuse it foundation, that's what I'm hearing. Which makes sense.
I also just want to point out the one thing that made me a little nervous there was like a naming rights for every individual thing and such. We don't want to become like Children's Park or Waterfront Park or something where
Yeah.
every single plant and bench and piece of playground equipment and little thing and everything like that has a plaque on it or something like that. It's major items that maybe will get a name or something. Otherwise, it belongs on the wall with everything else.
Yeah.
Cause it's, you know, if every starting block had like a person's name or something like that, it just becomes a bit, one, I think it's a bit much as far as stuff, and then it becomes a management issue with that, when that starting block breaks, having to try and figure out, do we put another name on it and all that different stuff, so it's, you know, I was hearing like the bleachers or something, you know, I would limit it on, you know, large fixed items that are in place there and not things that move around, and really limit the number of things that we would sell on that.
Right, and I think that that's like one of the things that we're hoping for a little bit of feedback on, like what is perhaps too much, right? For those sorts of naming. I mean, I think that when we were talking about you, like, you know, talking to different groups to see if they wanted to again, fundraising for a specific item, you know, like, for example, water polo and swim team came to mind for the bleachers, because they're probably gonna be the groups that are having the competitions, right? And so it seems like that could be something that they might be interested in, but it's working with them to like listen and hear what's important to them and see if that's something that they wanna get behind.
So there are a couple other little details. It is not really our prerogative to talk to you about, you know, the banners, but we're gonna do that anyway, because we do expect to go to the corporate folks and ask them to contribute to the pool and the $2 million. And in that dialogue, we imagine that they'll say, well, we already have a banner. And our thought, just for your consideration, is that, you know, maybe having the banners is not ideal in the next facility. And as an alternative, you could have, you know, maybe a large flat screen that is protected from, you know, the humidity and so forth, which would allow you to cycle through people's names. And so you have a much more disciplined and constrained area rather than that. That would allow, you know, a lot of different things, actually. It would allow people to potentially show for different periods of time, for more time or less time. You could track that. There's a lot that could come out of that. We just wanted to mention it because, again, we do expect to seek money from corporations to the capital campaign that we're running. And so we just wanted to bounce that off you in case we get that question and see what your feedback may be. And we can dodge the question, of course, and just say, well, you know, we don't really know what the status is on ongoing memberships for advertising purposes and that sort of thing.
I don't know the idea of a screen personally, just in a place where got personally, that just, at least that specific request personally. I don't love the idea of a big screen in the place where people should be just exercising, having a good time and playing in the pool, and just knowing people just automatically just look at those things. I just don't like the idea of a big one in there personally. But I like the idea of, you know, something that can rotate through.
Yeah, and so
I know that's.
you know,
Mhm.
this is intended to be organized in a way that the board can provide feedback on these specific things. And then there's another discussion later on additional specifics, right? So really the request on that item right now is to get direction from the district board about the annual corporate sponsorships of some form. As Charlie says, like, maybe it's a monitor, but that doesn't need to be decided right now.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
like which
yeah.
format it is, just whether
So it
there
would
would
maintain
be,
something
yeah,
like
whether
that.
there would be something. So that as people are going out fundraising, if the question is raised, we can say, yes, there will be something. We may not know the details yet, or we just don't know.
I think we should take the opportunity for this new pool to get rid of all the banners. And because who's to say what the new pool will support? And that gets us out of kind of in perpetuity and then socializing a expiration date with their sponsorship. You know, you mentioned annual, and that's fine, but it just creates clarity, I think, and that it also gets rid of the clutter.
Exactly. Okay.
I mean, maybe alongside you have one wall for all the donors and another wall next to it that's like the rotating
Yep,
donor.
annual,
I mean, something like
yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, that was the idea, exactly.
Yeah, something.
And it's not massive, but
Yeah.
it'll, I mean, these are not massive either. What are they? 6 by 4 or something. Okay. And then, trigger point for when the foundation comes back to the district for approval. We just wanted to talk to you. If somebody comes back and makes a very significant contribution, but has a special request, we would like to come back and make sure we're aligned with you. Does it feel right if we do that at the 100K level, or do you have any other guidance for us?
I mean, I'd say even if someone's willing to do 50,000, it's just a chunk, that a lump sum toward that 2 million, I'd say. But to at least pitch whatever they're trying to sell, probably be worth at least hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
But
We're gonna try and guide, obviously.
Yeah, before they get here.
To
Yeah.
general contributions, stay on the donor wall, don't name everything.
Yeah.
But there may be situations where there's a special request and we'll just come back and seek guidance.
To me, I think the interesting thing is what's the nature of the request, not really taking it into account the amount that is provided or given. I mean, if it's just weird or, I don't know, inconsistent with our values or what, I mean, I don't know what that would even look like, to be honest, but it just, to me, it seems like, what is the special request?
That's a valid point. I don't think that 50 really matters. I think it's more, what are they asking?
Yeah.
I think it's being pretty people focused and
That's good.
So okay, just to push back a little bit, thinking of talking with donors. So if someone says, I want to donate 5,000, but I want XYZ, and it's different from the current plan, are you saying that should be brought to the
I
district?
think that one, you guys would probably already say no. Before
Well,
we get.
so that's where
I mean,
it is helpful to have
yeah,
like a trigger amount.
Yeah, but I think 50 is probably reasonable, then if you do want to find it, I mean, I agree with Brian, what Brian's saying is really, it shouldn't really matter exactly the amount, but yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
anything below 50 is like, look, there's a pretty straight guidelines for what you guys are following for a $5,000 donation, which is still awesome, and we appreciate it, but here's the bubble or whatever.
Right. It's a blue bubble.
Yeah. Yes.
No, you can't have a pink.
Yes.
Yep, okay.
So the last slide just summarizes this. More.
Covered
So it looks like the only change from this proposal would be changing number 500K to 50K as the trigger for coming back. 50K if it deviates from the current
it. Was good.
proposal.
I think that's reasonable. I guess I suggested it, so I hope so.
Okay.
What was I thinking?
And then I think it's safe to say that as we get into the recognition for number 2, obviously that's more in the nitty gritty and the design part. And obviously the foundation will be working to collaborate with the board and figuring out the details.
One thing that obviously helps us is knowing your schedule, right? So I think we know that the sooner we get the dollars, the better. Because if we get them in before the design is finished and before the build starts and so forth, it's just easier to do it away. Yeah. But we don't know those exact dates yet, so as soon as you share that, it'd be great.
Yeah,
We'll rally campaign events and stuff around that. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, hi, feel free, my face when we talk to Christie, as I talk about any of the advisory council, and as Kate.
And Brian.
Yeah, and Brian, everybody's been involved to jump in. So just a quick recap. So we had our, final advisory council meeting for this, fiscal year, with this advisory council in June. And I was going through the meeting notes and just took some takeaways. Last year it was noted that there were some gaps during meeting times. So one of the suggestions was to provide advisory council members moving forward if there's like large gaps in time, just with any action items or key decisions that are made, you know, so providing some updates to the advisory council moving forward. They recommended that the advisory council be a distinct group from the oversight committee. So having those as two separate groups, which I think the board is in agreement with. And working to extend that application for the new advisory council members and oversight committee members through mid to late July. And then they recommended, which I think we heard from Kate and Nancy, that communication should be a key factor in keeping people informed, helping to reduce confusion and manage expectations, and then how important it is to have credible oversight members for compliance and fiscal overview. So those were kind of like our goalposts moving forward. And so then just an update on where we are now. So we have opened up the application to the general public in the next week or so as part of that communication plan. We are going to be working to hit that in all the major categories of like sending, you know, PSA to the newspaper, social media outlets. We have posted it in our newsletter, you know, and then targeted groups. So if you have people that you think would be a good fit, you know, you can forward the application to people. And so Christy and Brian helped to develop those questions. And then they kind of helped set some standards for the rubric. And then we worked with Jace and Mike to kind of refine that rubric and set a good solid process for moving forward. So you could go ahead and move that to the next one. The applications are going to remain open through July 31st. We kind of figured that since we knew that, which we'll be probably talking about soon, the RFP for the owner's rep and just kind of general timeline, allowing time through the end of the month with the possibility of having selection and appointment happen for that August meeting. And then just for the selection rubric and the process that we established, we'll do a blind review of all of the responses. The responses are the questionnaire for the application is all in one form, but the form is separated so that people can say, I'm interested in applying for the oversight committee, I'm interested in applying for the advisory council, or I'm interested in applying for both. We did leave that as an option. And then when we go through and review it, we'll take out all of the identifying information, and then the selection group will review those, score it, discuss, and then that information will be reintroduced, and that information will help to balance the group for like diverse representation, committee balance, and like district whole. And I think that's about it on the update. Do you have questions or comments? Sound about right?
Yeah, I think so. The only thing I was gonna say, maybe I didn't hear it or I'm mistaken, the advisory committee, and I think Nancy even as well touched on this. I'm wanting to intertwine the owner's representative with the oversight committee and make sure that that was a focal point. That's part of the reason why things got pushed back just a little bit too, if I recall.
Yeah.
That's okay, just making sure.
Well,
I got
and
that
just to give more time
Yeah.
for
Well, yeah.
applications. That was in my mind the bigger one, but yeah,
right.
both
But
of
both,
those, yeah.
they all kind of came together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a previous version of these slides, or maybe I'm thinking of the slides from last month, did have kind of the potential numbers for different categories. And the only thing I really want to ask about is, I think 16 is the number that was kind of the max for the advisory council. Should we talk now about the numbers for the two different groups so that the selection committee has guidance on
That
that?
would be a great idea.
Okay.
Sure. So, yeah, right now
Yeah.
it is in our charter, we have up to 16 people for the advisory council. I think one of the things that we did hear from that was that's a large
Yeah.
group to manage. And I mean, we could keep that and just know that we could go up to that for the advisory council. Do we want a different number?
I wonder about 6 and 10. Like
Yeah.
6 oversight, 10
I
advisory.
was thinking 8 to 12 range for the advisory, and
Mhm,
then
yeah.
6 for the oversight,
Mhm.
so we got 10.
And part of the logistics we're stacking again as well, rather than having staggered like get-togethers, because how much stress that puts on the district, trying to have that many additional meetings, so it should really butt up against each other. This one happens first and then an hour later, the next one, things like that. I think will help even more than the numbers in some ways.
Well, yeah, I think, yeah, they've got both issues going on, because the numbers is a facilitation challenge, right? For the person
Correct.
trying to, person or people trying to facilitate this group of
Yeah.
12 to 16 people of different opinions.
So now if you do it twice as often every month,
Yeah.
that's also problematic in the same respect.
And I think our tentative schedule for the advisory council is roughly 4 times a year, quarterly. And then for the oversight committee, shooting for every other month.
6 months.
And
6 months.
understanding that it could be more depending on the schedule.
I think the remote nature was touched on as well for logistic and the facilitation of that. Plus, we're talking about acquiring space once this is no longer an option either, right? So physical space is still here, even though we went to the library or the firehouse. But eventually this won't be a space during that time frame.
So I'm hearing 6 for the oversight committee. Do we want an 8 to 12 for the advisory council? Do you want
10.
or 10?
Stick with 10 and then.
Okay,
Maximum.
But you can- yeah.
and
Maximum.
maximum of 6 for the oversight?
Do we want to even consider 6 and 6? I mean, did a larger advisory committee? Yeah, I don't know.
I think you'd get a better chance to have more different information.
Yeah, demographics are a little more distributed and diverse.
I mean, I'm fine going below 10, but I think that could get a little, there's just so many different voices.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Present, yeah.
Well, the difficulty as well was we had 16 prior that never all showed up.
Yeah,
And so depending upon if this is more staggered as well, somebody can't make it, some buddies can't make it, you're now really inhibited.
The number did allow for a lot of unique and interesting perspectives, so, I mean,
Yeah.
that, I guess, that, I think that is a pro for having more, and I think I really appreciated the fact that there were different people who I don't always see, and so,
Looks good to me.
Can you also add that the meeting frequency that we have currently, just to the next to the numbers? And it's tentative, but it's helpful to have that in the same place. So advisory council is quarterly, is currently the thought, and oversight every other month.
Yeah.
Really.
Makes sense.
and we advertise them as likely to be determined and likely to be nighttime meetings.
With a 1-year term still, right? For both, or is the oversight the duration of?
We haven't really defined that
Yeah,
yet, and
good
I think
question,
that
yeah.
as we move into that, I think that we'll have to.
Maybe
Yeah,
just have
yeah.
to talk to the applicant, or once you
Get
have a
some
pool
clarity.
of 6 people,
Because it
if there's 6 people that are willing to stay along with the end of it, that's probably pretty valuable.
is likely to be,
A few years.
yeah,
Yeah.
at least a 2-year process.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Okay, RFP. Ownership. Some of these slides look very dense. I don't expect to go through every single one of these points here. But I thought I'd just start over with a quick overview of what we'll be talking about. One, this is a draft. It has not been reviewed by legal yet. We do have a plan to have it reviewed, hopefully by this Friday, depending on what changes we have here, or mid next week or so. And our actual regular attorney is out of town right now, but we're gonna work with the people that we worked with, they're called Local Government Law Group, and we worked with them about 2 years ago on the big overhaul of our purchasing rules. And so they know purchasing and bidding very well. And when I contacted them, they actually said, I told them that I used the Redmond, Oregon's as a template, and they were like, "Oh, that's great. That came from us." So it should be pretty easy for them to review. So that's awesome. So anyway, so for today, we're going to focus on the scope, the dates and the deadlines, scoring criteria, and then pricing and selection committee process. So right now, we split up. Hopefully, you all had a chance to read it. It was in the packet there. I put it in on Friday so that you'd have the weekend to look at it as well. But we split it up into kind of 3 different areas. And so there's the early project planning, due diligence and solicitation. There's the project design and pre-construction oversight. And then the phase 3 is the construction oversight. And each of these is really what we want to do is, this is a little bit bigger of a job than maybe ever than some of the owners representatives do, but we really want them to take the lead from the very get-go, as far as like, we want them to be putting the RFPs out for the design team and for the bid, and we want them to advise us on the project delivery method. It is a little tricky because the project delivery method, sometimes they'll charge more depending on which type of project delivery method it is. And so we are thinking about, just maybe adding something into the pricing area that just states that, like, if there's a difference between the project delivery method, please state that in your pricing in your pricing area. Like I say, I don't have a plan to go over every single one of these, but if you've had a chance to read it in advance and you just have anything on just like the scope so far of these 3 different areas, or something else that you think that we should have added in on something that we want them to be doing for us, be interested in hearing what that is.
So you want us to start on page 6, scope of services, is that?
Yeah, yes, well, I'll go back to scoring and the other areas. I've got other pages on that. If you want me to do it in a different order, I can do it in the same order that this came in on your.
Mark,
Well, for me, for me, it's easier to go through the document page by page, but it sounds like you have a structure there. So if you could maybe just tell us kind of
Okay,
which page should we be looking at, or just make sure we're all looking at the same.
okay,
So it looks like,
yeah.
let me look
So
like you're
so
page
so just
6.
starting with the
Section 3.
getting into the scope first.
Yeah, hey, well, yeah, section 3, page 6. Right, yeah.
So early planning, due diligence, solicitation, we'll start with that one of the 3 different phases.
Well, this would be where the oversight council, we need to write that. I think we would like to write that in here. It
Okay.
would probably be in the early project planning, because
Essentially.
presumably it would start then.
Be working with the oversight.
Yeah, yeah.
Essentially, and basically make sure that they're included in this,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that they're aware that it's gonna be this group that they're gonna
Right.
work with.
and there is the area, like Nancy said, it just wasn't written explicitly, but I could just add them to the area where it's where they are
providing written and verbal project.
Yeah, that's third from the bottom. Third bullet.
Mark, I was just going to say that to have, again, just as Christy was just saying, just the reporting requirements to the board, the type and frequency of those conversations, as is with the oversight board, having some kind of frequency and reporting, discussions, briefings, questions and answers, that kind of thing. it kind of alludes to it, and there's some things that you could hang it on, regular updates, those kinds of things. But I just thought we had discussed something a little bit more explicit in our last meeting.
What recommendation would you have there?
To require them to specifically brief the board of directors on progress reports, if there's a frequency that we want to establish, if it's every other month, if it's monthly. Preferably what they would do is brief the oversight board first. They would then pronounce themselves on that to us. We would take that information and the information from the representative and make our own decisions.
So, for the language of this, just like say monthly, or
At least every other month.
Yeah,
It
I mean, if
doesn't-
we're,
not
if
necessarily
we,
monthly.
yeah, if you went along the same frequency as the
Yeah.
oversight committee meetings, briefings every other month in concurrence with oversight. Meeting
And board
schedule.
meetings, yeah.
Yeah.
And then having them, again, it would be then us asking the oversight board to pronounce themselves on the information too, because ostensibly they're the subject matter experts. The representative is briefing them. We're then receiving a summation from the oversight board saying, "Hey, this guy is, or gal is out to lunch, or they're not thinking of these things," and then we can then come over the oversight board and say the board now would like to see these additional points because of this risk or the information presented.
I'm taking notes here without an admin assistant. It's here. I might actually pull the RFP up and put that over the top of the screen because I'm doing it twice right now, and that's not very efficient. So let's see here.
I don't think this detail is for the RFP, but it is kind of touched on the reference to reporting out to stakeholders. Just kind of want to confirm, my assumption would be that reporting out to stakeholders would sometimes be this person, but sometimes there may be someone else who is more appropriate because like Mark already has relationships with agency leads, so you might be more appropriate to be reporting out to, say, the school district superintendent than this new hire would be. And so I'm just kind of, you got checking that.
It looks like up on here, he already replaced the stakeholders and just put oversight committee, which is probably clearer and.
Oh,
probably
okay,
makes
yeah,
sense.
and then.
Cause the stakeholders seemed unnecessary. It's really the only other group that really should be involved in this, that in the oversight committee.
Yeah, I can.
They shouldn't be talking to every single person in
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
That's not their job,
Right.
Okay.
but for them to expect that, they'll be pushing it.
Yeah. Okay, so roll on to the next one. Okay, the next one is under the project design, pre-construction and oversight. If there's anything in this one, I can also update the same thing because I think that the language in all of these of the updates to us.
And I just want to make sure, I don't know if I just missed it, but is there something in there about them helping plan the public outreach meetings? Or is that not their scope? Because I was under the assumption that, like when we did May Street there was at least 3 or 4 public meetings that kind of like they held.
Yeah,
Is that in there and I missed it?
I think that will probably be something that will be in the architect. The architect is going to be the one leading like the public outreach and such. That will be part of their job.
So So this person wouldn't oversee that, that'd be the architect.
Right, they would be overseeing kind of the contract with the architect, but that would be an architect duty.
Got it, okay, I just wanna make sure that doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think we'd want the people that are doing the actual design work to be the ones that are like leading that part.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect, as long as, so then basically, this person will write in, or this company. They will say that in the architect's RFP that they write. They expect-
yeah, which we will have to approve the RFP that goes out for the architects, but yeah, that will be part of their duties.
Okay.
Mark, just a quick comment. This is only because I was an auditor in a past life. The scoring that you have up above doesn't math.
Oh,
We're gonna come to that.
okay,
Okay, and I was
Yeah.
just saying, if you wanted to do that, I would do it on a 100-point scale, 40, 40, 20. But if we're going to come to that later, great.
perfect, okay, yep, we will. Anything on this next one then, besides changing the oversight committee language like we did before? The second page.
Does it mention here that they're gonna have to work, like I see at the City of Hood River, just make, like, what about the school district, just in terms of their parking lot? Um. County, I guess we don't have to worry about really directly, but indirectly probably, but should the school district be mentioned in there, just the fact that half their space is
Yeah,
parking lot?
yeah, are you talking about under the coordinate with?
Yeah, just so they're like, oh, well, it's not my job to talk to the school district, even though somebody should probably, park in there and manage and.
It's also probably gonna be more effective with the people that already have the relationships with this district.
Yeah,
That one, but. I mean, but it might need to be
You
it
could
might be
also,
good to have it in there.
you could also just put applicable agencies.
Yeah, yeah, there, yeah.
okay. I'm just gonna put a reminder for me, I'll figure out a better way to write it, but,
Cause it might also be the church too.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah, applicable.
um. Phase 3. Okay.
For these things that are going throughout the whole scope, is there a reason not to just put them as, for the duration?
I thought the same thing, and I started to kind of do that, and then I went through and read a lot of other ones, and they really do have them listed out as like in the different phases and such. It just seems to follow the format, and so I was mostly following the template there, but to me, it seemed like it made sense to put it all in one thing.
Yeah.
But I'm just following the template, so it's a question that I could ask the legal if there's a reason that we do that, or if we should clean it up and put it all in, some sort of other thing, but.
Yeah.
From the samples I looked at, that's kind of what they look like they did.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's more important that we put this in the same format that they're used to seeing and they're used to getting, and we don't try and invent a new way of doing it for it, but it did seem odd to me.
Yeah. To us, it is less readable that way, but if that's what they're used to, then.
It's engineers.
Yes, right. Then that's.
Yeah, no, very,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I will go over and talk about schedule right now, and then we'll do scoring. schedule, I left all of the dates blank right now, and then I put this here where I can move some of these around a little bit. Here is like what I'm trying to do. I would like to move quickly on this, but at the same time have enough time for people to really submit here. I've been looking, and some of these RFPs are live for 2 weeks, and some of them are live for 4 weeks. Usually that's about the range, it's not much more than that. This one I think is a little bit more simple than like a big, huge design RFP where you're really going to have to get all of these different subs and all this stuff. There's a lot of companies that just do this, and I think can pretty quickly be able to answer the things that we have here in this RFP. And so a couple things here, just we've already kind of lost most of June, although we really hustled, we could probably put it up there early next week, but that's if legal can go ahead and turn this around, then we might be able to get Monday. I'm hoping by Wednesday of next week, which it can't be, it's already July. But if we went live with the RFP going out on a Wednesday, and when we got it, all out into the different publications and things like that, we can try and look like if we could get it closed by the 24th, which would be about 3.5 weeks total that it would be out. That would put a deadline for the request for clarification. What this is people aren't allowed to call us individually and say like, hey, what are you guys doing with with this? You have to like say in writing, I mean, it was all in the RFP, but you have to say in writing like what your question is and such, and it gives us time to put it out on a website that everybody can see. That way it's fair and everybody's seeing the same answers to the questions, so that everyone's working with the same amount or the same information. And so it would just put us turning that around over a weekend and getting that back out to everybody, and then gives people 3 or 4 days after that addendum and all that stuff is there to finish and get their thing into us.
Can we shift it to the 15th, the yellow to the 15th and the red to the 22nd?
Yeah, well, this is the 24th right here of July.
Right. Can we move that to the 20th?
And you can answer those questions, like, so if questions start rolling in, you can answer them live and have them posted.
Yeah.
Which is great,
Sorry, Jacob, yeah, I missed what your
I was
question
just saying, can we shift those over 2 days? Both those, the yellow and the red one,
So the yellow to what day?
the 15th,
Yeah.
and then the dead, so that would give 2 weeks of them having it to then ask questions, and then 1 week for them to. Even if you kept that till Monday now. And the red, the deadline. Which one's the deadline?
Deadline is the 24th.
Yeah, so I would say the 22nd for that. No, that would give 3 weeks. Does that seem reasonable? Give us a little more time on the back end.
So the 31st is the interviews then?
That's what I've got right here. We can put this further up. If we move this, then we could probably move our review time up a little bit, maybe have the reviews or the interviews on like the 29th.
Why are they listed as optional interviews?
They don't have to be. It gives us the rate, the ability if we did not want to do interviews. I think we probably do want to do interviews, so we can call it mandatory interviews. Yeah, that's easy.
Sorry. Good with volume.
I mean, I think we are going to want to.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'll narrow it down to like 3 and then have 3 interviews or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that seems like we did with the architects or design.
How many actual hours do you anticipate that reviewing the proposals will take?
I don't think it'll be that many hours. I just think that it's gonna be multiple people that are
Yeah.
doing it. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to have a little bit of time in case people have different schedules and stuff. We'll get into that in a little bit on like who's going to be on the selection committee. It's one of these things where We want to keep the number, I think, small enough to be nimble and be able to like not have a couple people slowing us down.
Yeah.
But also big enough to make sure that we're getting the right voices and the right people in the room, but we'll get to that in a second. So that's why I put in multiple days right there to do the review. If we feel like we get the right people on and they can turn it around in a day or two, then we can probably go with an earlier interview. Maybe we could start with, interviews on the Monday, the 27th and 28th, like that. A lot of this is pushed up by, I'm going to be taking time off in August, and about the 5th is around the last day, I think, that I might be around here. Which is why that's grayed out right here, but I do want to be a part of the selection process. And so, so.
You're only gonna be working with them for.
I don't know if that's a good idea.
So getting this done earlier, the better. I just am trying to make sure that we're not, I didn't want to have, push the entire thing to us, compressing the schedule because we're trying to, leave for vacation on time. But if everyone else is okay with us, compressing this, and maybe the interviews could be, that we could, say that they're going to be, it's such a hard time to do like a July, to have a meeting in July, we could say and put it over a couple days, like that day of the 27th with an alternate of the 30th or something like that, so it could either be a Monday or a Thursday.
It just did, because of the RFPs that we've done in the past, it just did a search and it does say that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are like good window days for those things.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
What about Wednesday then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
so 29th, 30th window.
So you're having proposal review over the weekend, just to make sure, that that's identified, like 2 of the 4 days are weekend days.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
I know,
okay.
I mean, that's like, this is how we'll get this done right now,
Just,
like,
yeah.
It's, yeah,
The packets are, I think they're maximum of 15 pages.
yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm not anticipating more than like 4 or 5 people to apply for this, or firms rather.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a limited number of firms that I think can do this kind of stuff. I think that it's one of these things that, yeah. The reason I put so many days in there was so that, people have other full-time jobs and different things, that they've got some time in there. Maybe they want to do it on a Sunday morning, maybe.
But wouldn't the process be review the packets of whoever's doing it, review the packets on their time and then a meeting after that?
To choose when we come back for it, or when we decide, yeah, I guess if we don't want to interview everybody and we just want to choose like what we want to come back to interview, then we probably do need to maybe do it over 2 days and have everyone let me know by Friday at 3 o'clock so I can tell these other people whether or not they've got the optional interview.
That seems reasonable.
But I don't know if I have to write that specifically into the RFP, that I'm gonna let them know whether or not they got the interview. That's again, another one of these decisions that if the board is going to have to release control to the committee, to weed out a couple of firms.
So it would be simpler actually to interview all of them,
Yeah,
unless we get 10
yeah. Correct, so I think that would probably,
Cap it at 4 or 5.
yeah, I think that would be smart. I mean, I don't know how many of these are ratings, but if we did get 10, it's very definitely. And we could always schedule a special board meeting, for the selection committee to go over the selections with the board. But unless the board didn't
Okay.
want to,
Yeah. So it sounds like it's either interview all of them or the committee is delegated the authority to reduce the number to at most 5 to interview.
Or 3, but yeah,
What?
or 3.
Or 3?
Yeah, whatever that number is.
Yeah.
I mean,
There
you
could
have
be
to
some
put that in
obvious
there.
ones that they would throw, but up to
Yeah,
5,
yeah,
and then could, yeah,
No more than 5, yeah.
Okay.
okay.
We need any motion or anything for that, delegating that authority.
No, we'll get into that in a little bit on this, but I don't think we need an actual motion. But we will write out what it is, so everyone's clear on it.
So with this timeline, what is the day that we would actually be able to decide as a group who we're going forward with? We're looking at
So,
August.
I would say probably, we go with the 24th.
24th.
Well, no, oh, sorry, on who we're going to interview.
That's fine, 24th,
Yeah.
choosing who we're gonna
Yeah,
interview. 28th
so,
and 30th for the interviews.
yeah, optional interviews, and then, I think that if we want to do the contract, the actual award right there, we should probably, we could probably do like a special meeting, maybe on like Tuesday the 4th.
Yeah.
Where we, make a decision, so. And I don't know if this needs to be in the RFP, but, I could ask the attorneys about this, but. Okay.
Hey, if the interviews wrap up on the 30th, do we really need 4 days? If we're talking the 4th?
So typically the way we've done it in the past is, we've had the interviews and then that scoring committee meets right after to go over scores and then, we get to a recommendation to the board. So if you're planning to have, I mean, even if the interviews were to take 2 days, because not everybody could come that day, you could conceivably either have a special meeting, like Mark said, either by the 4th is probably a safe date, or, if you wanted to push it earlier, you could probably.
You still having to put out a notice, right, before that special meeting.
Yeah, and I would say.
We could put the notice out well in
We could,
advance.
I mean, yeah, if you're planning for that to be, I mean, I think the only issue would be if there's indecision on the selection, right, on the selection committee, but usually there's, as long as you're creating a strong, the strong rubric and you have your discussion around it and your goalposts.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like it would be an issue. I mean, if you'll remember, we did have with the pool, it was the scoring was really close.
Yeah.
So we had them come in for that additional interview, so there could be the need for an additional interview, so you could always say that optional interviews or that, interviews will be scheduled for the 28th and 29th, with the 30th held for a second interview if needed,
Yeah.
just in case.
No, it'd still let us make the decision by the 31st, because if we can't make the decision after, or whoever's doing the thing, if they can't make a decision after follow-up interviews on the 30th. then we really,
Right.
what other more time do you need?
So like that there could be flexibility to schedule on the 28th or 29th, right, with the groups. But that if a second interview was deemed necessary, then the 30th would be the required date.
Okay. Everyone okay with this as a calendar? Yeah, okay. We might be able to even, the target date for notice of intent to award. Or if that's intent to award, then maybe that is the 31st, but we might be able to award this even earlier and then have them get started on things. A little bit earlier, so but I'll work on that with the dates. We would like to get them started very quickly on this if they are able to.
Yeah, yep.
The special meeting would be to delegate the authority to confirm the contract, right? Like, because there's no time in there to actually have the back and forth about the actual contract. Like, it wouldn't be that the special meeting, you would bring the contract then for reviewing the exact contract, right?
No, that we would be just doing the intent to award or talking or
Yes.
proposing to the a possible intent to award is probably what we would do, but have it as the advisory the selection committee advising the board on what to do. The contract is already going to be written, but it will still, the part that will still need to be negotiated is the fee part and everything before the contract is actually signed and such. And so that will probably be at either this regular board meeting on the 19th, or we might have a second special meeting if they say that they're able to get started earlier. And these special meetings will be just over Zoom and one subject only. There's no with that. But that way we can hopefully get started, you know, and sign this earlier. But it will take some time to get all of that stuff worked out, negotiation on that. So I can do it all before I leave.
Anything else you need from us on this slide?
Not on schedule. I'll move on with scoring. Much people say stuff here. And so
75 is unequal 80, there you go.
yeah.
But Brian's numbers add up to 100 and keep the same ratios.
It's 40, 42 names all.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's different ways to do this again. And so I put in a couple other examples of some other ones I saw. There's this Happy Valley, Oregon did one for community center for an owner's rep for a community center that they ended up not, I don't think ended up building, but I pulled this one from there. And then the city of Hood River just very recently did one for their urban renewal project and the Heights stuff. And this was their scoring criteria. There's lots of different ways that we can score it. But it's all just based on what we are valuing here in the contracts and what we think we should be really focused on. And so interested with the board on where you feel like the scoring criteria should be weighted.
I personally like this breakdown. I will say though, are people gonna say, hey, the company, especially with their questioning how we spend the money, and if we're doing it fairly, should the compensation, I mean, should it be more 33, 33, 33? It's just in terms of, should they be equal balances if we're trying to be stewards for the taxpayer money?
I would say of any of the things here, this is the one where hiring a good quality person will probably end up saving us money in the long run. And part of their job is to keep everyone else in line and look at scope creep and look at, the construction methods and tell us that's not necessary and that sort of thing. And so I think that this is one where we should probably not be so constrained by going with the actual lowest bidder on this one and go with who we believe will do the best job of keeping everything in line in order to save money. I think that we can make that justification there that we want the most quality person because we're trying to save money.
I like that the examples over there, particularly the city one, breaks that out a little bit more. So for instance, like on the one we have currently, project approach and references, to me, those seem like pretty different things.
Mhm.
And so it seems like it could make sense to separate those out, especially like for the people doing the scoring, unless maybe it's going to be separated out in their rubric and this is just a summation of a section.
It's almost like you could put references with knowledge, experience, and qualifications. It seems like, those types of things, because it's essentially like a resume, and references is number one.
It does fit more with that stuff, yes, yeah.
So within connections be a part of that instead for project approach and understanding? I mean,
Well, I think we need to
Connection.
put connections in there, but that's something that would be mindful of.
right, that's where I felt like maybe the references was leading to in that area. So if we're targeting it more in the first criteria bullet.
I don't,
Yeah, I don't know what do you
I-
mean by that? You mean like connections to other firms and?
Yeah, just it's gonna help with their approach and understanding depending, I mean, because we're gonna be asking them to do a lot of that connecting, right, with other stakeholders or other firms, anybody else who's gonna, we're gonna be leaning on them to pull in a lot of who they know, right?
yeah, I don't think so, as much as, I mean, I don't really care if they know who the general contractors are and that sort of thing when they're putting the RFP out. I did think it was interesting under the cities, they had location and familiarity with the area, which I think might be kind of a little bit along that line. And I think that was probably appropriate for the city because they are trying to find like somebody that knows the idiosyncrasies of this stuff. I think that this is more important that we try and find somebody that like knows aquatics, that
Yeah.
knows whatever. You know, I want somebody that might have worked on another pool project or something
Yeah.
before. Which I think is just kind of one of the things that we could probably fit in under experience. A lot of these, I like the idea of having a smaller amount that gives us a little bit more objectivity when we're in it, rather than breaking it out into each of these very little more granular things. Because I think that when you do that, I've been on these sorts of things before where you add up the points at the end and I understand why, you know, the whole point of a scoring matrix and everything, but there's oftentimes where you're just like, whoa, I didn't see that coming because you've broken it out into all these different little things and it takes away, I think, a little bit of your flexibility to be able to really choose who you want.
Yeah, I'd say keep it like how you have. I personally like the one on the left, and a lot of the things you talked about could be under the understanding bracket. When you're scoring it for yourself, whether they understand the area or understand pools, but whatever, however you weight it, when you're doing the scoring system, you're gonna be mindful of that.
Yeah.
So I think I like the left.
Can we broadly add future mindedness to that second bullet point? I mean, I could just do it in my head as well, but I think kind of to the point that was brought up earlier with the advisory council and looking to the next levy or these things.
Okay.
I mean, we got a pool for the next half century, but the future mindedness aspect of it is something that I mean, it goes back to your point of, have you worked on other pools before? What do you see in that gap from when you built that one to this one and how long it's lasting that?
Well, so they're the project manager. I feel like the future mind, like that sort of stuff is I feel like on us.
And the
And
architects.
yeah, I feel like they are supposed to be taking direction from.
Yeah,
board.
the role of them also is a lot more like managing the different subs of like, can you get this done on time? Can you get this, you know, that sort of thing. They're not going to be more, I don't think, in the big visionary thing of just like saying like, oh, let's make sure that, you know, I mean, I guess maybe a little bit with their reporting that we might want to have them looking through a certain lens there, but
Yeah, maybe the thing that gets at that a little bit is like their ability to interact with the different group, like with the oversight committee, like the skill set that they bring there for interacting with the board and the oversight committee, but that probably is covered under knowledge and experience.
Yeah. Just throwing things out.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
So don't mind me.
We'll throw out two things too that will probably just not fit in there, but one is availability, like that they can start sooner rather than later, and whether that is something that gets factored in, yeah. Because I would think we would want to give some preference to that, but not a lot, because we wouldn't, you know, if we have an excellent person, we wouldn't want to not have them just because they can't start right away. So availability.
Will they not put out an RFP if they can't start right away though? I think money we're gonna receive, people are probably ready to go most of the time, aren't they?
I think that they probably are. We might be, maybe instead of like a score criteria, we could put that into the RFP, like must be able to start. I would say that would just disqualify anybody that can't be started by September.
Yeah, better.
September first or something.
So they can just look, okay, we can't do that
Yeah.
because we can't meet the
Exactly.
deadlines.
So,
Okay, and then a related one is in-person availability. So just making it, I mean, at least in my mind, I want this person to be on site quite a bit. And I recognize it may not be someone who is from Hood River, like not necessarily the familiarity with the area. But I don't want to get someone out of Portland who's like, I'm just gonna do this virtually and then show up twice a month.
I think they can come as much as we want them to, it just comes at
And
a
then we have to
cost.
pay. Well, so I guess then that would factor in a bit to the compensation and the
Yeah.
budget, and if someone is closer than that, they would score better for their proposed costs then, because we wouldn't have to
Yeah,
pay for that transportation.
Yeah,
put that under the compensation umbrella.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm with you. I just don't know what that is. I was thinking
Yeah.
about it earlier and how we asked, but people can do a lot of work remotely. And I don't want to discredit in this day and age, but I don't know what that balance is. How often
Right.
should they be here? And
yeah,
to Marcy's point, if they'll be here as often as we want them to be, we just have to evaluate that cost.
mhm,
Well, I mean, again, I'm going back to, I just mentioned again, because remember the Main Street one, I mean, the company basically had someone that ended up moving here essentially and living here. And then, I mean, even to the point is even after Main Street was built, actually before it got torn down, they had taken over one of the spots inside the building, and then after it
mhm.
got rebuilt, they stayed around for a few months in another one of the
Remember.
classrooms in the, they took over a class.
Dale Kuykendall.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember.
oh, yeah, Dale, he was around for a long time. My wife actually, they shared like a space, and she actually was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, something like that might
Right.
be something that someone who's able to do that or willing to do that
Mhm.
would probably be something to consider.
Yeah.
But that could just be under the compensation umbrella maybe still, because like, I don't,
Yeah, I'm sure
I wouldn't wanna hold
I'm
it
sure
against
the
somebody,
school,
but
if he'd moved here, the school district was probably paying for
Oh, yeah.
housing and, and all that stuff.
sure was part of it, yeah.
Construction is not cheap.
Yeah.
Do we need to say anything in the RFP about any sort of expectation around in-person presence?
I will make a note to look at some others and ask about that. Uh,
And again, I'm not saying they would need to be here all the time, but just I don't want to have the extreme of
Some expectation.
never here.
Right.
We'll just make sure.
I'm more effective far and away.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I think that this is different, unique for us too, where like a lot of the ones that I've looked at have been places like Bend or Portland that probably don't have a person that would have to move there to do this stuff. Whereas this one, they're either commuting from Portland or yeah, they're gonna be here regularly.
Yeah.
On the outside, so.
Well, once or twice a week, that can, plenty of people do it almost every day, so I
Yeah.
think that's a reasonable ask, but yeah, we'll see.
I mean, it depends upon the time of the year too and the project.
Exactly, there'd be lots of times
Yeah.
when they don't need to be here on site, but then like when they're in the meat of construction, it's probably good to be looking over stuff as it's coming in, or at least hire a sub that's doing that. They might have local contractors and they can hire to be looking in on stuff too.
Right,
Yeah,
Price.
the pricing, compensation and pricing proposal, I just put this in here. Marcy and I just had this conversation the other day where are you gonna put like a not to exceed max on it?
Yeah.
This is a kind of a tricky one here. Most of these projects in this price range are anywhere between 1.5 to 3% of the total project cost. So we're looking at like around 650,000 to possibly 1.2 million on this. So it's a big range within there. And it's a double-edged sword when you put an actual like not to exceed amount in, a lot of your bids come in pretty darn close to that spot.
Huh.
But if you don't do it, oftentimes they'll complain and they'll say like, hey, we had no idea what you even wanted here. Like there are some that maybe won't bid if they don't see that it's, worth their while there. I've seen it both ways. We've done it both ways. When we didn't have a price in there, I think we still got bids, but we did have, that was one of the main complaints from them, which was we really would have liked to have seen that. And the last time we had it, it was every single one of the bids was within a few $1,000s or max.
Yeah, there was only one. that was
Only one maybe that was lower and they weren't qualified. So I guess I'm interested in the board's feeling on that.
Does the RFP talk about the cost of the bond? Like how much they
Yeah.
have to work with?
The
So
co-
they'll see that, right?
They'll see they'll see how much the bond is
they'll
for.
see it's a $40 million project or
Yeah.
whatever.
And that's the other thing, Marcy mentioned, maybe.
To
Christie.
take off.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
We'll be in touch.
All right, thank you. It does say that the bond was 40 million, but doesn't say that the project is potentially a $43 million project. We could put in the extra amount there too, if it makes a difference to people.
Right, like stakeholders could be the foundation, and, grant funding.
Yeah.
I just figured if that number's in there already, but maybe that's a way to not worry about having to
Yeah.
give us a cap, because they should at least know, okay, we're a $40 million project. So I'm gonna probably expect to make about this much.
Yeah.
Or for the bid at least.
This is another one of those things where I don't have the language in there, but I mentioned it earlier that we could have something in there to say like, that their project or their quote, if their quote changes based on the project delivery method, to put that in to the quote. Because I think that there are different costs associated with that. There's more oversight with one of them.
What does the payment schedule look like, and how does that align with how we're navigating through operational dollars before replenishing down the line with the capital?
They're billing monthly on it. I did get a copy of the monthly bills for Redmond, Oregon ahead of time when we were doing our budget. To make sure that whatever they were just kind of basing what we were doing off of theirs. And so we're safe there for what we've got, what we have saved. Yeah, if we get close to running out of reserves, then we can sell the bonds and or get a small loan or something like that. We've got a backup plans for it.
Okay.
If we don't list the not to exceed, would that be something that they would submit as a question and get to respond to, or that's not really in that category of what they?
They might.
I would say it's almost certain that there will be a budget.
And so then we'll have to answer.
Well, no, you don't necessarily, I mean, the answer can be, we're looking for the best. Yeah.
Or compliance with district.
Right,
compliance with
and you can say that you're gonna be looking at it based on experience, like using
Yeah.
all of the criteria that you had.
Mhm.
And that cost is, a factor by whatever it's 20%.
Sorry, Brian, I didn't hear what you were trying to say too.
I was just saying, we in compliance or in concurrence with industry standards. I mean, you just use kind of vague language like that, and then you don't have to state a specific dollar or a threshold.
That will give us more data, at least, if you're getting that many different, blind price points, that will tell us something.
Yeah.
On the compensation topic, what about any sort of incentive for them to stay on schedule and not drag things out, because if they're getting paid, they're basically getting paid hourly, right, by time and materials. So there's potentially a little bit of concern of.
Will their bid have a not to exceed though, I assume?
Yeah, well, yeah.
So their bid will have their own, I'm not gonna go past this number,
Yeah,
right?
and then we will also, I mean, there could be a change order if there's extra stuff that we needed them to do on it or something like that, but But. Oh, yeah, we'll be watching that. I think what you're saying is that could we get creative and maybe this is not what you're saying, but and put something in there that has something like a bonus for finishing on time. Be considered just something like that if they wanted to write that in, or I don't know.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm mostly concerned about it just getting dragged out.
well, yeah, it made me wonder about earlier on when we were looking at components, the project closeout was one sentence, very just like.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know what that looks like, but thinking about it in this span of, well, I've gotten all the money I'm gonna get out of the deal, there's nothing more for me to do here. Bye, I'm closed out.
Yeah.
Are you though? Because we haven't cut a ribbon yet or something, I don't know. So yeah, that makes me wonder in that sense, how deep we in something. In terms of what that looks like for when they are closed out in their role.
Yeah. I think everything that we do has some sort of ramifications that we might not be thinking about. Like if we had some sort of a bonus also for closing on time or opening on time, and said that that was very important to us and such, you could have somebody that's like rushing things through, not approving change orders, not taking their time on something that should,
Yeah.
I think we want somebody that can say like, you know what, if we wait 2 months, we're gonna get a better product in the end, and you're gonna have this pool for the next 40 years, so let's slow things down. And I think, so I don't want to stress too much on that, it's a balance between stuff, between, timeline and, getting a good quality product.
And it seems like that could be included, a good point of discussion for the selection team, right? To, note in their project approach, did they meet, have, a good solid timeline for staying on project schedule, right? And that could be included in your score.
Plus in the references or whatnot, if people were, if they've worked with other people before and they've always been
Yeah.
relatively tight, but if it's somebody were coming in unknown, then without those references, it's a huge risk, obviously. So, and I think we're gonna have to base it along on what they've done before, I think. And
they can define some of that. How do you define closeout? How do you know when you're done? Tell us your approach to that.
so, yeah, my vote is to leave it open-ended.
Okay. All right. Anyone other opinions? Just like it's written? Okay.
I think because we have the bond amount listed
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
that helps. I think if we didn't have that, it would be
Yeah.
tougher, tougher.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
And now, who should be on the selection committee? Who makes the final decision? The board, obviously, the very, very final decision, but on the selection committee, if it's just we do it by consensus or by vote, like the democracy, or how we how we come to that decision. And then just a couple other things, and just like the board will approve it at a special meeting when the contract is signed in the August meeting, maybe earlier.
The selection committee is different from the interview panel, right? Or no?
I think it's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So the selection committee is going to select who they believe and recommend that to the board. The board will make the final decision on that, but the selection committee will move forward and say, I don't think that the people on the group will know what the selection committee comes up with until we bring it to the board.
Okay, my question is, you get 10 RFPs, the selection committee takes that down to 4 or 5, and those are interviewed by the selection committee or by the board?
By the selection committee.
Okay, and then they bring it back to the board to talk about.
To recommend, just like we did with the architect.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is 6 too many if it's 2 staff, 2 board and 2 other?
That's not too many.
Okay. Because I think 2 board helps kind of get at maybe a concern there, like the board's gonna have to approve it, so we want to probably have more than 1 board member
Yeah, I would
there.
want to
Two makes sense.
Yeah, I would wanna see a lot of that. I mean, I don't have to see everything, but by the time we get to an interview stage, I would wanna know what the board was looking at in totality.
Mhm.
We do have one board meeting before we get into selection as well, that we can, in the July meeting, if we wanted to say like how many people we wanted to have on it. We could, at the July meeting, make the final determination of who that is, so we could spend the next 3 weeks or so till the July meeting, recruiting and talking to people or, you know, maybe not recruiting, but, I wanna be careful how I put this, because the board's not gonna be discussing it, but, thinking of who we might want to have on there, and then, at the July meeting, we decide for sure who the selection committee is. If that,
think
unless
Kate and
the
Nancy
board's ready
volunteered.
to.
What's that?
Said you and Nancy already volunteered, right?
Maybe one
That
that
wasn't exactly what we
Yeah.
followed.
I know, I'm just kidding.
we really, in my opinion, need a someone with construction expertise, at least one. So of those, if it's two additional, to me, at least one of those needs to be someone with construction, like.
An experience
and
or
large
experience,
projects,
yeah, with
ideally,
large
yes, not
projects.
just any construction.
On the 19th, how close we are to our digital timeline? Like, will we know by then how many? Cause you said, like, how many applications we've already had received? What was our first deadline?
The deadline is the 20.
Yeah.
So we.
Yeah.
And so many of them will probably come in the last day, right?
Oh, they'll all come
So-
in. We
so
won't
we
get any
won't know.
proposals.
Yeah.
The proposal will all be at the exact same time,
Yeah.
3 o'clock.
So does it make sense to move our board meeting to the 22nd that month, or is it too late to do that?
I don't see the point of having a board meeting based on who is submitted on it. I think that the selection committee is the same no matter what.
Okay.
Mhm. Well, cause so at the actual board meeting. Could we have a process where the committee brings their top recommendation, but they also present on who number 2 and 3 were, so that there feels like there's a little bit more input from those who are not on the committee, so it's not just, well, I only get to see the one.
Well, probably a broad overview, you know, we had 10, we had
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Application, these 5 were not selected for this reason. And then
Mhm.
these remaining 5 were given interviews and here's the brief synopsis, right?
Yeah, it came down to these, a couple right
Yeah.
here, and here's the pros on this one, and here's the pros on that one, and what do you, like, it comes down to what you as a board value. I could see that getting a little tricky based on the scoring matrix, of the interview committee. And what they, what their scoring matrix says. Because if their scoring matrix is done, it'll be whoever they've,
We've got 4 people from the committee at the board meeting though. So I mean, it'd be you 2 and then whoever, 2 of the board members. And
Yeah.
then, so that's 2/3 of the people already who would be able to at least chime in and say. So I think it's good to know that we have the scoring and we'll have the rubric, but we don't have to necessarily abide by 1,000, 100% as the board. But we can use that as our.
yeah, the legalities behind picking a huge $1 million project are, especially if we put it in the RFP. I will have to check with legal exactly on if the selection committee has a certain score. And maybe it's the board, maybe the selection committee comes up with a certain thing that they bring in, the board is the one that does the final scoring or something like that. The selection committee says, we've interviewed these people, here's our recommended or whatever, and the board can do the scoring or something like that.
Maybe if the scores are within 5%.
I just wanted to make sure that let me check with
Yeah.
legal to make sure that this, to find out how binding the final scorecard is with the actual choice.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's between 92 and 91 or something like that, if the scores are like close. Maybe they can just have to take 92 and then what's the point? I mean, we might as well, we have to vote on it.
I'll check.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just name for myself personally as well, I'm gonna have difficulty being here on the 15th. The way the month fell, July 1st being on a Wednesday. All of a sudden, the board meeting crept up a lot faster than I thought this coming month. So if anything, I'm gonna have to try to zoom in, but.
And just to add to that, on the 15th, I will be traveling.
Yeah.
So I cannot make the 15th.
Well, we can.
So all of a sudden now I'm like, well, that's why is I thought I booked stuff differently, and then I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
I guess that is the third week
Yeah.
of the month.
Yeah.
I very soon.
Well, I'm sorry, Brian.
Oh no, I was just saying I had the same event when I was like, oh crap.
So I feel like we're kind of dancing around the question of the committee and making the decision. I currently myself don't have concerns with it being two board members, and that's at least not even saying, oh, I do one, but two board members, two staff members, and two additional people. And I feel like, I mean, how do you all feel about?
Yeah, if that seems the
And
legal way to set it up properly, then that's what we do.
okay, and then they would bring their recommendation in
Yep.
to the special meeting
Yep.
in August,
In,
right?
I think the
Fourth.
special meeting is actually the 31st right here.
Oh, we are in that date.
Yeah,
Okay.
would be the date that we do the, which I know I've got these colors here. This, I think that it is, maybe this is now the, target dates, because I saw the word intent to notice board. Maybe this is the actual notice of the, or the actual contract date that we're signing contracts, but. So right now, and it also says target for a reason. I think we can still move this if we can't come up with something on that day. And we've got some questions, they do extra interviews, we can probably move that a little bit further out there.
Okay, so special meeting on the 31st.
And we won't,
And. Yeah.
quorum won't be necessary on the 15th then for any reason, just in case you don't have it.
Well, there will be, we will be selecting, board officers on that, and so there is a quorum necessary, so we should probably make sure that we've got a date that we can have a quorum of people. I mean, we can possibly move that first meeting in July. Just if we moved it that full next week, then that would be on the actual date that these are due. That would be necessarily a bad thing, except for whoever we're selecting for the committee would be selected for the night. I mean, I guess. The board can select people tonight too, if you want to. It's just, we've had one board member leave already, but if you wanted to select who the board members are, and then maybe we take our time and then try and figure out who the other two people are. And ask some people if they can keep that schedule open in case the board decides to select them. To be able to like just talk to a couple people.
The other two.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that the other two people that would, and just say if the board chooses you, you'll be getting some, like if we move the board meeting to the 22nd. Then we would just tell a few people that you might be getting a bunch of packets on this day and have to keep these days open for interview.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind being involved, but that being said, I would mind to make sure my vote goes towards you being there. To make sure you got a spot if you're willing and wanting to do it, just because I know how much you value, I mean, you've put so much. Time and effort into all this that I feel like you should have a huge say in this, in that part personally.
I'm okay not being on this if, if there are two other board members who, I don't know, I'm looking at, but if there are two other board members who really want to do this piece.
Because I'm
So-
fine either way. I know you sounded you're a pretty strong one to
Yeah.
get involved.
I mean, yeah, I definitely will take a spot if nobody else wants, but if somebody's like, no, I want to take it, then I'm also not gonna fight it. I understand what we're trying to accomplish here.
Brian,
Right.
I'm happy to join. I'm on it. If there's a opening and
Very well, Stuart.
well,
Okay, we
yeah,
know
I'm
Mike
well,
wants to do it,
I'll
so.
step back. So there you go. I mean, like I said, I said my piece.
So I'm hearing Mike, Brian and Christy are all interested, but okay, not doing it. I don't know the best way to to decide.
Who wants to be strong about saying, I wanted to do it? Right? You wanted to do it. It sounded like you wanted to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll take
It's
one.
okay.
Okay, so,
I mean, I'm interested, I mean, Brian's here too, but in you doing it as well, because I think you do sometimes bring a different perspective than Mike, and I think that's helpful to have, you know, to have different perspectives. I mean, we all bring, but, so, and I'm doing a lot of other.
Yeah, no,
things
fair,
for
yeah.
Parks and Rec,
Yes, you are.
so
Yes.
happy to
Got it.
have someone else do a piece here.
So
So, but Brian also sings. I think, Brian, you did the architect piece, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It was you, the two of
Uh-huh.
you, yeah.
and
I was
Jason,
involved with that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Brian was a budget committee.
He was the,
member
yeah, at that point, he was
Yeah.
the other.
Yeah.
He was.
He was one of the others.
One of those people. Um,
I'm fine either way. Brian, if you feel strong about it, I mean, I have confidence in your questions and the things you bring up.
yeah, I mean, Jason, if you want, I
All right.
almost feel like,
Deal, all right, I got it. I'll
I will do it.
just move this forward. You're okay with it then? Unless
Yeah,
you wanna
oh,
go
yeah.
with the- Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
so Brian
Jason-
and Mike. Is that what-
No, no.
Jason, Mike.
Jason, Mike,
I'm sorry, Martha. You she didn't have a say.
okay. And then, I do strongly want a construction person. I already said that, but that's where I feel strongly
Yes.
on this piece. And then I guess I have with a few possible ideas, but not a whole lot, so, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and then we're still working to keep the meeting on the 15th next month instead of the 22nd.
Hmm,
I mean, that feels like a separate issue
Okay.
from this that does need to be
Sure.
resolved, but
it's some good results tonight though.
yeah, get, so. Is there anything else for the RFP?
Yeah, I got everything I need for the RFP.
Okay.
The next question then, yeah, is, let's see, maybe I'll just go to the next agenda item. Strategic planning. Okay. So that, the strategic planning, so this actually will be, talk a little bit about the next month. So in the next month, the board, selects the officers. We can't do this early. It has to be done according to our charter at the very first meeting in, of the new fiscal year. But I just wanted to put it out there so that everybody, remembers that that's what we're doing with this next month. And now that it sounds like we may not have a quorum, or be, have, two members that are going to be traveling and not here, I think the question is, do we want to move the July meeting to another day that people will be here?
I'm fine either of those days.
If we moved it maybe to the 22nd, the fourth Wednesday, would Ryan and Mike be able to attend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
There
And
will be an event at the middle school that night, so. Parking might be an issue.
What's that? What is it?
Library event, stunt comedy. Well, sounds more fun than board meeting, but that's okay. Board meeting is more important.
Alright, so we are moving it.
Well, I think Mark's checking his schedule.
yeah, I'm fine.
22nd, okay. Okay,
Okay, so. All right.
I'll update on the calendar.
hopefully Martha will be here. Yeah, that, because I don't know if she can, but we have forum at least.
Yep.
But-
Let's get it. I didn't really need an official motion on the others. There was more stuff, but if we're changing an actual meeting date, I would like a motion. So can I get a motion to
Yeah, I make a motion to change the July 2026 Parks and Rec board meeting from July 15th to July 22nd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Opposed?
Great. Sorry, move forward just a little bit, calendar. Okay. So, there we go. We will be discussing that. There was another, an idea that just wanted to float out there of ideas for board involvement. Christy had actually, talked about this, about different, areas that the board might be able to help out with. I did do a little bit of research on kind of the specialty area sort of thing, and I couldn't find any other parks districts that do. It doesn't mean that we couldn't, but we just really have to define what that looked like. But kind of like what we're doing right now with just having different committees or different projects and stuff, we could have some ideas for specific things that board members could be doing, like if one of the board members we wanted to have be assigned to the pool, the building project for this next year, to kind of check in on that sort of thing, and maybe have a deeper role in that, or that sort of thing. Maybe you've got other ideas on how you want to explain.
Yeah, well, and it also comes from going through the election and hearing so much feedback, right, during both elections, really, about, things that the public think. Yeah, well, misinterpreted, but also just room for improvement, that some of them are just simply operational, but some of them are more strategic, that are more in the realm of the board, like the Barrett Park thing, like, the Barrett Park question continues to float out there. There's no one on the board that specifically is kind of, parks is really my area of focus, or the pool is really my area of focus, or rec is really my area of focus, to kind of be, even if it's just kind of like an informal lead for that piece. So that's kind of where that came from, rather than just it kind of being a really organic. If someone hears about something or is interested in something, they might speak up about it, but there's not any sort of formality.
It's like committees without the name.
Yeah, or committees within it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this isn't necessarily like providing specific like assistance with communication, or this is more topical, or
This
both.
is where I feel like it gets a little muddy if it starts getting into like this specific board member is now going to meetings on this and representing the board on it, or doing work on that specific thing. Then it gets a little bit more into like the is it an operation thing, is it a staff thing, or is it a policy thing? So I think that's where we really would need to define it. If it was if somebody's specialty was recreation, I don't expect them to be coming in and leading the charge on a new cost recovery plan or something like that from
But
along with staff.
I mean, but I do like the idea of one addressing, these kinds of thorns that we've had, and having a board member seized with Barrett, that would be a standing agenda item every, whatever. I mean, but because that's a known thing, having the board as a committee of the parts seized with it, I think is pretty pertinent and important. I don't know what other committees would look like, though.
And this right now too is more kind of putting it out there for all of us to think about.
Yeah.
What might work, not to, and come to some sort of necessarily formal proposal right now, but to think about it ahead of the July.
It's a tickler for the July meeting to say, to kind of re-envision this a little bit. The top three things of the president, vice president, and secretary are written in our charter. They are mandatory, that we have there. But this other stuff is stuff that does not need to go in the charter or anything like that, but it's something that we could just do this year so that we don't just have three people that are holding an office. The secretary position doesn't really do much. they might sign resolutions at the end of the night, but there's no real things that they're doing, even though it's written out here. It was a long time ago, it was delegated to staff. But this other thing could just be something that like this year we're saying like, hey, there's other ways for board members to get involved on, you know, specific things here. So just maybe come up with your ideas at the next board meeting and.
Well, and for this last year, we did effectively have this, but for two other things, for the advisory council and the foundation,
Mhm.
right? So it's almost potentially kind of an extension of that idea. And then another very concrete example is potentially each of us are assigned to a different government agency. The city council is doing that, where each of their city councilors is assigned, and they keep in touch with, you know, there's one of them that keeps in touch with Parks and Rec via me. And so might be good for us to consider doing that as well, and we each kind of take a different agency.
I also see somebody's probably gonna have to be the person to do the work with the oversight committee, at least, or there's gonna be someone who's gonna probably have to chime in on that or commit to that, the advisory still. And then, yeah, I guess there's a school district, you don't really, other board players need a specific rep. But I would think, well, maybe, you know, the city council for sure, school district makes sense, county, and I guess the board too, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, good thoughts, definitely.
so, yeah, something to think about.
Okay. That's it for strategic planning. I'll move into the reports. So getting to the end of the year here for the general fund. General fund is looking great. 82% total expenditures and 109% coming into revenue. It's a pretty awesome place to be. We do expect you know that to finish the year under expended on everything in total there. Yeah, doing well there. And of course, that money will just be rolled over into beginning fund balance, and that's part of the reserve stuff that we'll be using to pay for these consultants until the bond money comes in. Improvement fund right now, still no change in the improvement fund this year so far. Recreation fund. The revenue's down a little bit, but we've done a lot better in the last month or two of staying steady with the ending fund balance at 91,000 right now. We're looking for that to go down a little bit, but we'll probably end up with a higher ending fund balance than we had originally anticipated. I think we had $60,000 going to, that we were projecting in the budget. That was the ending fund balance. So I think our ending fund balance would be closer to 85. And STCs, we did see a really great jump there, especially with our outside STCs, but also our city ones are still not exactly where we want them to be right now. But again, we're in spring. We do anticipate this is the time of the year that many permits are coming in, so hopefully we can get a few more right here coming in before the end of the year. But overall total revenue is just about 100%, which is again a great place to be at this time of the year. When we only have 1 month from back, but to already cross that 100% threshold at this point is great.
Does it seem like a lot of people are cognizant of 7-1 and an increase in SDC rates, and when we get that permit in just before I pay 3% more?
Yeah, I don't know if I would refer to as a lot of people, but the builders are.
Okay.
There are for sure a lot of builders that do try to get their permits in just for that reason. The people that are just adding an ADU or something like that, it's not really on their radar. Got it. Yeah. Okay, I just have a quick little bit on director's report. The volunteer appreciation is still on our radar. We have not selected a date. we are glad that we were able to kind of push this off, with just how much stuff the staff had, right there over the last month. Have not slowed down. And so we're thinking of still doing it. We just need, like, the board and staff will have to come up with some sort of a date. I know Marcy and I, we were talking about maybe something the end of summer, like right before we close down for shutdown or something like that. Kind of a farewell, you know, well, before we're closed for a week and we come back. That's usually a better time for us, a little bit. I don't know if I consider it really a lull. We have a lot of kids going back to college too, so it's sometimes lifeguards might be a little tough, but I think we can probably make it work.
Well, with lifeguarding, I think we'll be okay, especially if it's before the end of summer. If it's after that, then staffing will become extremely difficult because we'll lose half of our staff to water lifeguarding, right? So it would be a good time to think about it.
Would it be possible to combine that with meeting the owner's rep, like the owner's rep coming out here to, or is that, or you want to keep those things separate?
Is it possible? Yes,
No,
but
just
it's
to like say, hey, like, you know, they can answer questions, all these people who worked their butts off to do all this, so.
again, I think that you're confusing what the owner's rep's going to be doing. They're working with me, not with you know, with everybody else. I mean, they'll be good for them to know the board and everything, but I don't really think there's a value in them getting to know the swim team and all the volunteers and everybody. They're
Fair.
But combining with a kickoff for the foundation fund.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Might be
That would work.
something.
I was just trying to think of something,
Yeah.
double whammy kind of thing, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And I would say that it's probably a little bit more inviting for people to come to the pool when the roof panels are still off, and we might continue to, we haven't talked about a date for when we'll put those back on. In the past couple of years, we have waited until, you know, roughly October to put them back on, so maybe we'll do that again this year.
Mhm.
Just haven't talked about that scheduling, you know, sometimes it coincides with our maintenance when we close, so.
Still doing, instead of a 2-week shutdown over Labor Day, it's 1 and 1.
One.
but that's the point Marcy brings is if we do decide to wait till October, when we're shutting, like, we can take off the panels on a day that we decide just to open at noon or something like that, but putting that back on, we pretty much have to close. We've done the whole thing in a day before, but it's
Takes a long time.
it's a long day, and we'll usually schedule 2 just in case something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other things here, the new aquatic center fees and residency discount rollout. Thank you everyone for being understanding that we moved this to July 1st. We just, like I say, staff is packed right now. We just did not have, didn't feel like we were ready, and we wanted to have a more smooth rollout. There were a couple of things that we were looking for a clarification. I won't want to have the same length of conversation we had last time on it. But swim lessons, I know we've talked about this before, but we still, when Marcy and I chatted about it, we still weren't completely clear on it. And we've heard both sides and kind of going back and forth. But if the swim lessons, if the board wanted the swim lessons included in the 50%, or if it was still considered a program like all the other programs at the 20% more, I will say that logistically, it makes sense to have it in the looped in with the rest of the programs so that we can just say just general admission is the extra. And once, because if we start getting into swim lessons, we were writing it out on the stuff and it was like certain programs like swim lessons, but not lifeguard training and all this, and it just got confusing on all this stuff. And it's just easier for us, I think, if we can just say general admission is this much more and swim lessons is just a program. We've also already done our big push for swim lessons early on this year, so that's all our people have already registered for that. So this would be for later on that we would be doing the swim lessons.
Swim lessons really won't be affected right now.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
don't-
but it would be
Yeah.
if, you know, starting in September.
I wouldn't want to penalize anyone. I mean, as minimal, keep it as close to the normal price, the regular price, in my opinion, for swim lessons. That's like a program thing, and I'll be getting as many people trained to swim as possible.
Well, we're also talking about district though,
Right, I
because
get it.
pretty soon here with the IGA, we're gonna have to discuss school district lessons and what those come in at, right? I mean, now again, will be the district discussing that, but
I think this question
Yeah.
wouldn't affect that though, because
Yeah.
we're talking about the out of district
right.
premium.
Sorry, my brain only went there
Yeah.
because the school district
Yeah.
lumps in Cascade Locks as part of them, but then we'll have to separate that two out potentially. again.
Well, we've never done that before, even though
Right.
we have had different prices for it, we've considered everybody that's like coming in at a school in the school districts,
Yeah,
right, paying the same. Yeah, same amount.
I do like the idea of bringing it in alignment with other recreation. I mean, as you said, Mark, I mean, I think that there's an argument to be made to normalizing it. I know in the past it's been different at times, but I kind of like the idea of normalizing it as a recreation activity and pricing it as such.
So 20% across the board for rec and swim lessons.
Any programs.
Any aquatic program
Yeah.
or
We
recreation.
just don't even use the word aquatic, just any programs.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then the other thing is just for the like general admission that we're coming in to swim here. Is the
Pool passes.
pool passes,
Is,
fun
yeah.
cards,
Punch card.
general admission, yeah.
Got it.
That makes it simpler for us.
And I would like to put out that the swim lessons are in very high demand.
Hmm.
And so if we are gonna keep the 20% instead of 50, I'm fine with that. I recall it being 50, but I can be on board with a 20% difference. I would like to continue to think of ways that the local taxpayers can get access to these swim lessons that are in such high demand. My son's swim lesson that I was sitting at last week, which was great, by the way, both my kids had a fantastic time. They came away, they were so positive about it. The two parents sitting next to me, both of them were out of district. But for the four kids, they're four kids, so. And I mean, in some ways, that's nice, like, we're providing a service, they were talking about how wonderful this pool is, and how wonderful that it's a year round, and it's fantastic, and. They drive out of their way to get here. But I just also wanna make sure that our local in-district people, we can do, other creative ways to make sure they're.
And so I
Yeah.
think one point to just point out for
Mhm.
summer lessons, we
Mhm.
have a lot more availability of summer lessons and we don't have as much of a wait list during the summer as we do during the year. So that's maybe why there's more availability with.
Oh, that there's just purely more slots that people can sign up for. I mean, they still get booked like right away though, most of them. So
We
there's still
still have
that, right, there's still in-
availability for later in the summer
Mhm.
and that's been open. It's still open and we still have availability for. lessons.
And I don't think the dollar amount solves the issue that you're talking about, but there definitely are places that do this program's open for in-district registration on the
Yeah.
22nd and open for everybody else on the 30th or something like that.
Yeah.
And we could look at doing that in the future. I would say let's wait, let's try and get our computer
Yep.
system and all that
Yep.
stuff with as many people in the system as possible to have that before we implement something like that,
Mhm.
but that's much better implemented with dates, specific registration rather than price.
And we actually have done that because we have the active RX swim lessons and it's a similar sort of thing. So we are offering a session for active RX participants to try to ensure that we're like providing some open slots. So I mean, I think the idea of either, setting an earlier date for in-district residents could possibly be a solution as long as we can figure that out.
It's a system flagging, now you guys have to flag who's in district and that should be relatively easy, relatively.
Possible.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
The other one that came up, and I just kind of made this decision on it, but it was not one that had not been discussed earlier. Kind of wanted to just make sure the board was on board with what I had said, was that a resident is a property owner that maybe doesn't live in the district is also considered a resident. And they can show, because they're a property taxpayer in the district, and so if they can show their tax statement with their name on it, that then matches their ID that has the name on it, that is a valid way of approving someone, because there was a person that lives in Mosier but owns a business here in Hood River and owns the building where their business is, and they're just like, I pay property taxes in your district, and I was just like, sure. And that's how most places do it.
Seems fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any other clarification, Marcy, that you could think of that as we were putting together everything? Okay.
Process things.
And then I just want to point out that Parkdale Park. This June 27th, this Saturday is going to be Saturday and Sunday, or is the most popular days for that park this year. We only have two events scheduled all summer, and they're both on the same weekend. And neither of them wanted to move their dates. So great events. Why Use Wonder is a running event. They actually are not really using the park that much except for parking, and they've got that's the registration area, so their bib stuff and everything. And then they are shuttling people from there up to the mountain to do their the big 50-miler and 50K races that they've got up there. And then the other one is the same event that they had last year, the Parkdale Summer Party, and that's more locals that are putting that on. Martha's actually gonna be involved there, and she'll be there. And then some people from the Grange and the Hudson Museum, and of course the Hood River Latino Network. So I went to it last year. I'm unfortunately out of town this weekend, but it was a fun event. So and a lot of the communities that
I ate a pie.
Yep, you did.
It was hard to do a pie eating contest.
You did a
Oh my
pie
gosh.
contest.
I ate a pie.
Still have flashbacks.
So does that mean Anthony's getting up there, getting it spruced up? Let's say it's 24.
Yeah, tomorrow we're doing a full mowing on it and everything, and then checking the power and making sure everything is all good to go. We won't have staff working over the weekends during it, but both Marcy and Jaime have posted they're around and are willing to run by if something happens.
Probably pop up there at some point.
All right, go to the order.
I just had a few comments, and sorry I'm not there. We're building a bridge, so I'm literally watching today, surveying and all kinds of good stuff. One of the things. What's that?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. I was just going to say, with the voter turnout for Hood River County, I was just doing some kind of a little research on my own, and Hood River County had the 5th highest voter turnout in this last election. We cleared 50%, and there were only 4 other counties that had higher voter turnouts. Oddly, one of them was east of Pendleton, and they had 68% turnout, which is awesome. I mean, yeah, it was 4 people, but anyway.
Yeah.
I thought that was important because not only did we have a higher voter turnout than the state by almost 12 points, we had a statewide referendum that was just an albatross in terms of the ODOT measure, which motivated, I feel, people, and we still cleared thresholds of 9% for the bond and 15% for the levy. So I just I'm not saying we need to have some swagger, but I think that those are very strong results, and it only speaks to our efforts and the efforts of the foundation and the PAC, but the strength of the ask. I mean, I think that recalibration was huge, and I just feel like we have a very strong future, and we need to build on it. We cannot take anything for granted. I mean, if there were only 100 votes cast and we got 99, I'd still want to know who the one was and why. And we can do that. But I just think we deserve a little victory, and it tastes pretty sweet.
Here. So a little bit slower. But just some of the information on, and there's more, I've got another sheet that shows like kind of where we've flipped some stuff, but where we saw the biggest gains obviously was all kind of within the city, when we look at the precinct data there. There was one group outside the city on the levy that came up. Oak Grove Country Club post gaming. But
Yeah.
so anyways, just wanted to share that too.
Anything else for the order? We do have executive
I know.
session. Yes.
We
Okay.
still got some more.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, so, yeah, I'll make a motion to not do it, or do you do this for the executive session part?
Yeah, I don't think we
You
need a
don't
motion.
okay.
So,
Thank you.
all right, we will now be entering executive session for ORS 92.6602E to conduct deliberations to negotiate real property transactions and to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the chief executive officer of any public body, a public officer, employee, or staff member who does not request an open hearing. The district board will now meet in an executive session. All members of the audience are asked to leave the room. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back in their votes.
Whatever's clever.
All right, it's 9:41 PM. We are leaving executive session. No decisions were made. We can now entertain a motion to conclude the meeting.
Make a motion to end the meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, good evening, everyone.
Until the end of the night, the little sugar ant started to come out. Didn't see a single one, and then all of a sudden, like, where the hell do you guys come from?
All right. So, Mark, you want to go tell Mark we're done?
Yeah, but still, yeah.
He's gonna back all that up, right?
Yeah, I think so.
This Zoom is still.
Still running?
Split it. Sure. Which means it's on.
And webinar for all.
Oh, because I can't, it's not showing up.
Oh, he extended the screen. Who duplicates screens though?